Grandpa, Grandma called you a filthy old leech on the phone with a man named Walter, my granddaughter whispered. I had never heard that name in 39 years of marriage. Not once. Not at a holiday. Not in an old photograph. Not in a single careless sentence. My wife had been taking mysterious weekend trips for 8 months, always to visit an old college friend who, it turned out, did not exist. I did not confront her that night. Instead, I picked up the phone and invited a man named Walter to my birthday party. But let me start from the beginning. Thank you for being here with me today. Before we dive in, drop a quick comment for me. How are you feeling right now? In just one word. I read every single comment, and your presence here truly matters to me. Just a note, this story includes some fictional elements to highlight the lesson. But what matters most is the message it carries. At 68, standing in the pre-dawn quiet of my Houston backyard, I believed I knew my wife as well as any man could know another person after 39 years. The air still held night's coolness, though August would burn it off by noon. I'd risen early. Out of habit, decades of opening Blanchard home furnishings before sunrise had trained my body to wake before the alarm. But the business belonged to my son now. And this particular Saturday marked my 68th birthday. Behind me, the house sat dark except for the kitchen light. Doris must have just switched on. I heard the screen door's familiar creak. Chorus Blanchard, 65 and still elegant in her morning routine, emerged carrying 2 mugs of coffee. Her silver-streaked hair caught in the early light. She'd been beautiful at 26 when we married, and time had refined rather than diminished her. The phone in her cardigan pocket buzzed as she crossed the flagstone patio. 68 years, she said, handing me my mug, 2 sugars, cream to the rim. Exactly how I'd taken it since 1987. You've earned every one of them, Lawrence. I accepted the coffee, the ceramic warm against my palms. Couldn't have built any of it without you, Dory. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen, and something shifted in her expression, a tightening around her eyes, a guardedness I'd never seen before. The moment passed so quickly I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. She tucked the phone back into her pocket without responding to whoever had texted. Caterers arrive at 9, she said, settling into the patio chair beside me. Leland's bringing the bakery order. I told him 10:30, so everything stays fresh. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky lighten over the neighborhood we'd lived in for 3 decades. Memorial area, good schools when Leland was young, solid property values. Neighbors who'd watched our son grow and now watched our granddaughter. The furniture business had given us this life. 32 years I'd poured into building Blanchard home furnishings from a single showroom into a regional chain. Doris had kept the books in the early years. Balanced inventory spreadsheets at the kitchen table after Leland went to bed. Chosen the fabrics for our first custom upholstery line. How well can you ever really know another person? Even after 39 years of sleeping beside them, the question surfaced unbidden, triggered by that brief expression on Doris's face when her phone had buzzed. I pushed it away. Today was my birthday. Doris had planned this party for weeks. Guest list, menu, the white tablecloths she'd insisted on renting instead of using our everyday linens. I should start setting up, she said, rising. The tent people arrive at 8. By mid-morning, our backyard had transformed. White tent canopy, tables arranged in conversational clusters, strings of lights that would glow softly when evening came. Leland Blanchard arrived at 10:15. 41 years old and carrying his father's build, along with 3 bakery boxes balanced in his capable hands. Behind him, my granddaughter Elowen climbed carefully out of the car. 8 years old with dark, observant eyes that missed nothing. Already wearing the pink dress her grandmother had picked out. Dad, Leland said, gripping my hand firmly. Happy birthday. Mom outdid herself with the setup. Your mother always had an eye for detail, I replied. Watching Doris across the yard. She was on her phone again, standing near the garden gate with her back turned to us. Guests began arriving around 1. Old business partners, neighbors from down the street, the Hendersons who'd lived next door for 15 years. Doris moved through the crowd with practiced grace, ensuring glasses stayed full and conversation flowed. But every 20 minutes, her phone would vibrate, and she'd excuse herself, stepping into the house, walking to the far corner of the yard, once disappearing into the garage for a full 5 minutes. The 4th phone call in 2 hours. Doris never used to be this attached to her phone. I accepted birthday wishes and deflected questions about retirement. Leland runs the business now, I told Jack Morrison, who'd supplied our warehouse lumber for 20 years. I just consult when he asks nicely, but my attention kept drifting to Doris. The 5th call came while she was refilling the iced tea dispenser. She glanced at the screen, her expression tightening again, that same guarded look from dawn, and set down the pitcher with barely controlled urgency. "I need to take this," she murmured to the guest beside her. "Business call. On a Saturday, I know." She walked toward the garden gate, phone pressed to her ear. I watched her shoulders curve inward, protective, secretive. She spoke in a voice too low to hear, one hand gesturing in small, tense movements. Something in the set of her shoulders as she turned away told me this wasn't a business call at all. I excused myself from the conversation about lumber prices and moved casually across the yard, stopping to examine the rose bushes Doris had planted last spring. They bloomed pink and white, healthy and fragrant. From here, standing just 15 feet from the gate, I could hear fragments. "Not now," she was saying, voice urgent and low. "I told you I'd call after. He doesn't suspect anything." I froze, hand halfway to a rose bloom. She turned then, saw me standing there. For one crystalline second, her face held an expression I'd never seen before, caught. Frightened, calculating. Then it rearranged itself into a bright smile, professional and warm. As she said loudly into the phone, "Yes, we'll finalize those inventory numbers Monday." She lowered the phone, walked toward me with that smile still fixed in place. "The suppliers," she said, "always calling at the worst times. Sorry, sweetheart. Let's get you some of that German chocolate cake before Leland eats it all." But I'd heard what I'd heard. He doesn't suspect anything. The words sat in my chest like stones, heavy and cold, impossible to dismiss as misunderstanding or imagination. I followed her back toward the party, accepting cake I didn't taste, responding to conversations I didn't hear, across the yard. Elowen sat motionless on the porch steps, watching her grandmother with those dark, no eyes. The kind of careful observation that meant a child had learned to watch for danger in the adults around her. And I was about to hear something far worse from the one person in our family who saw things adults tried to hide. The observation crystallized when I actually looked at my granddaughter's face. Elowen sat pale as paper on the porch steps, motionless while every other child ran shrieking through the sprinklers. 8 years old, hands clasped tight in her lap. She wasn't watching the other children or the presents. She was watching Doris. I excused myself from Jack Morrison mid-sentence and crossed the yard. Elowen didn't move as I approached. Didn't acknowledge me until I was close enough to see her expression. Not sadness, fear. I'd seen that look before on animals at the veterinary clinic, on new warehouse employees. The careful stillness of creatures watching for danger, tracking a predator's movements. "Ellie, sweetheart," I said gently, lowering myself onto the step beside her. "You're missing the fun. Everything okay?" She flinched before recognizing me, then went very still. Her eyes darted toward Doris near the refreshment table, then back to her clasped hands. "Grandpa," she whispered, voice barely audible. "I need to tell you something, but not here." The cold in my chest spread. "Come on then. Let's take a walk to the garden." I offered my hand. She took it with trembling fingers, and I led her past the tent toward the rose garden at the yard's far corner. Party sounds faded behind us, laughter, conversation, music. We stopped where a wooden bench sat beneath the trellis, sheltered by Doris's pink and white roses. Elowen climbed up beside me, her pink dress rustling. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She looked at her hands. "Am I in trouble if I tell you something bad I heard?" "No. You're never in trouble for telling me the truth. Children see things adults have learned to hide from. They notice the moments when smiles don't reach eyes, when voices change pitch mid-sentence. They haven't yet developed the social conditioning that teaches us to ignore incongruent signals, to accept surface explanations, to trust what we're told over what we observe." Elowen took a shaky breath. "Yesterday, I came over after school. Grandma was in the kitchen on her phone. She didn't know I was in the hallway. I waited, something in me already bracing. She was talking to someone." Elowen continued, voice dropping lower. She said you're a dirty leech who's been sucking her dry for 39 years. The words landed like physical blows. A dirty leech, sucking her dry. 39 years, the exact length of our marriage. Spoken like a prison sentence. "Are you certain those were her words, sweetheart?" I managed, keeping my voice steady through sheer force of will. "Yes." Elowen's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't understand what she meant, but she sounded mean. Grandpa, she's never mean. And she said other things too, about money and plans, and how she deserves better." The party sounds seemed very far away. I focused on breathing normally, on not letting Elowen see the earthquake happening inside my ribcage. "Who was she talking to?" I asked. "Walter." The name meant nothing to me. After 39 years, it should have meant something. "Someone named Walter," Elowen said. She kept saying his name, Walter this, Walter that, who's Walter, Grandpa, I never heard that name before. Neither had I. In 39 years of marriage, of shared friends and family and business partnerships, I had never once heard Doris mention anyone named Walter. Not a colleague, not a distant relative, not a childhood neighbor. The name was completely, utterly unknown, which meant it was deliberately hidden. The phone fragment from earlier, "He doesn't suspect anything," suddenly had context. Walter. The urgent calls Doris kept taking in private corners. The guarded expression when her phone buzzed at dawn. The way she'd changed her tone when she saw me near the gate. "Did I do something wrong?" Elowen asked, voice small. "By listening, Daddy says eavesdropping is bad, but I wasn't trying to. I just walked in and heard." I pulled her into a hug, feeling her small body trembling. "You did nothing wrong, sweetheart. You were very brave to tell me." "Are you and Grandma fighting?" she whispered into my shoulder. "Is that why she said those things?" I didn't know how long it took to become a stranger to someone you'd slept beside for 4 decades, but I was learning fast. "I don't know yet," I told her honestly. "But you don't need to worry about it. That's grown-up business and we'll handle it. I need you to do something for me, though." She pulled back, looking up at me with those too observant eyes. "Don't tell Grandma we had this conversation," I said. "Can you do that? Just for a little while, until I figure out what's going on." Elowen nodded solemnly. "I won't tell. I promise." "Good girl. Now, how about we get you some cake before your father eats all the corner pieces?" I stood, smoothed my shirt, and offered her my hand again. We walked back toward the party together. Each step felt like moving underwater, slow, heavy, irreversible. Doris stood near the tent laughing at something the Hendersons' daughter had said, her silver-streaked hair catching the afternoon light, her smile bright and genuine. She looked exactly like the woman I'd married 39 years ago. Exactly like the woman who'd brought me coffee at dawn. Exactly like a stranger. I had 3 more hours of this party to endure, 3 hours of smiling and accepting birthday wishes, and pretending my granddaughter hadn't just told me my wife called me a leech while talking to a man named Walter. 3 hours of watching Doris play the gracious hostess while wondering who she really was. I pulled Elowen close one more time, kissed the top of her head, and told her to go find the other children. She ran off toward the sprinklers, and I turned back toward the party, forcing my face into something resembling celebration. But first, I had to decide what to do with the knowledge that 39 years might have been built on sand. The last guest left around 9. Doris cleaned up the backyard with her usual efficiency, thanked me for being patient with her college friend who'd talked too long, kissed my cheek, and went upstairs to bed. By midnight, the house was silent, except for the grandfather clock in the hallway ticking off seconds I couldn't get back. I sat in my study holding a leather notebook I'd used for business observations for 40 years, and a name I'd never heard before today. Walter. The party guests were gone. Doris was asleep upstairs, and I faced a question I couldn't ask without revealing I knew. The study smelled like old books and furniture polish. My desk, solid oak, I'd bought from our first showroom inventory in 1994, held neatly organized files. A lamp Doris had given me for our 10th anniversary, and now this notebook opened to a blank page. I wrote the date, August 3rd, 2025. Beneath it, phone call fragments, Elowen's report, Walter, unknown name. My hand was steady. That surprised me. I'd expected trembling, rage, the hot flush of betrayal. Instead, I felt cold and methodical. Perhaps shock. Perhaps 4 decades of negotiating furniture supplier contracts had trained me to separate emotion from strategy when it mattered most. In business, you never show your cards until you've seen the entire hand. Why should this be different? I'd sat across tables from competitors who smiled while planning to undercut my prices, from suppliers who praised our partnership while selling our designs to rivals. I'd learned to watch for the tells the glance away when discussing delivery dates, the too casual mention of other buyers, the careful phrasing that technically wasn't a lie. I'd learned to gather information quietly, to verify before confronting, to never reveal I knew until I knew everything. The same skills that had built Blanchard Home Furnishings from a single showroom into a regional chain could be deployed here. The realization settled over me like a familiar coat, uncomfortable but practical. My marriage had become an investigation, and I had become a detective in my own home. I wrote, Doris mentioned he doesn't suspect anything during Garden Gate phone call. Assume he means me. Assume Walter is the recipient. Next steps. Observe patterns. Document inconsistencies. Gather evidence before confrontation. The word evidence looked harsh on the page. Legal. Final. But Elowen's frightened face floated in my memory, along with the vicious phrase, dirty leech. If Doris could say that about me to a stranger, our marriage had already ended. I just hadn't known it yet. I closed the notebook and locked it in my desk's bottom drawer. Doris never touched. 2 weeks passed. I watched. I listened. I said nothing. Doris's behavior continued its new pattern, frequent phone calls taken in private, sudden errands that lasted hours, a distraction during conversations that hadn't been there before. But she was careful. No more calls where I could overhear. No more obvious tells. Then, on a mid-August Saturday morning, she came downstairs with a small rolling suitcase. "I'm visiting Sandra this weekend," she announced, setting the case by the front door. "Sandra from college. Remember I mentioned she moved to Katy?" I looked up from my coffee. "Sandra, of course. Give her my best." "Just catching up. You know how she talks." Doris checked her phone. "I'll probably be back late Sunday." "Drive safe," I said, watching her return upstairs. I waited until I heard water running in the bathroom, then moved quietly to the bedroom. Her suitcase sat open on the bed, and the meticulous packing told me everything. She'd chosen outfits carefully. The blue blouse she knew looked best on her. The gray slacks she saved for nice occasions. The cashmere cardigan still in dry cleaning plastic. And jewelry. The small leather case that usually sat untouched in her dresser now lay tucked in the suitcase's side pocket. I opened it carefully. Diamond earrings? The ones I'd given her for our 20th anniversary? She wore them to formal events, charity dinners, our son's wedding. Never for casual weekend visits with college friends. She checked her reflection 3 times in 5 minutes. Doris never checked her reflection for Sandra. I closed the jewelry case and returned to my coffee before she emerged. She came downstairs 15 minutes later. Makeup perfect. Hair styled. Taxi should be here any minute. You're not driving. Parking's terrible in Katy, she said smoothly. Easier this way. Through the front window, I watched a yellow cab pull up. I memorized the company name on the door, the license plate number. Doris kissed my cheek. Her perfume was the expensive one, not her everyday scent, and rolled her suitcase down the front walk. She checked her phone 3 times during the 30 seconds it took to reach the car. The driver loaded her suitcase. She climbed into the back seat without looking back at the house. The taxi pulled away. I stood at the window for a long moment, then returned to my study and pulled out the notebook. New entry, August 18, 2025. Doris departed for Weekend with Sandra in Katy, Yellow Cab Company, license 7JK-449. Packed formal jewelry, including 20th anniversary diamonds, professional styling for casual visit. Avoided driving own car. The taxi pulled away carrying my wife towards someone I'd never heard of until 2 weeks ago. And I was writing down evidence like she was a competitor trying to steal a contract. Beneath the taxi information, I wrote one more line: verify Sandra exists. Check college yearbooks. Because in 39 years of marriage, I'd heard Doris mention dozens of college friends, roommates, sorority sisters, study partners. We'd attended their weddings, sent Christmas cards, donated to their charity drives. Sandra wasn't one of them. I'd never heard the name Sandra in connection with Doris's college years. Not once. Which meant Sandra was either a carefully constructed cover story, or Doris was visiting someone else entirely, and Sandra was just the convenient lie. The answers would start arriving sooner than I expected, and they'd be worse than I imagined. I spent Sunday pulling out Doris's college yearbooks from the storage boxes in the garage, searching for Sandra among the sorority photos and dorm floor portraits. No Sandra in her freshman year. No Sandra sophomore year. By the time I finished junior and senior volumes, I'd found 3 Sarahs, 1 Sandra, and 0 Sandras anywhere in connection with my wife's college years. The hotel receipt fell out of her coat pocket like a confession 4 days later. Monday morning. Gathering dry cleaning from the hall closet. I reached into the pocket of Doris's camel coat to check for tissues or receipts before taking it to the cleaners. My fingers found paper folded twice, and when I unfolded it, the logo at the top stopped my breath. The Driscoll Hotel, Austin, Texas. Not a budget business hotel. Not a chain motel off the highway. The Driscoll, Austin's historic luxury landmark. The kind of place with a doorman and a lobby bar and rooms that cost more per night than some people's weekly salaries. The kind of place couples went for romantic weekends. Premium room, 2 nights. Dates matching exactly when Doris had supposedly been visiting Sandra in Sugarland. Sugarland sat 20 minutes from our house. A Houston suburb where visiting required no hotel at all. Austin was 90 miles away, different city, different county, different lie entirely. I photographed the receipt with my phone. My hands steady despite the ice spreading through my chest. The image captured every detail. Confirmation number, itemized charges, the total that made my stomach turn. She'd ordered room service both nights. Champagne appeared on the bill. I refolded the receipt exactly as I'd found it, replaced it in the exact pocket, and carried the coat to my study instead of the cleaners. Small lies are never small. They're test balloons to see if you're paying attention. Practice runs for the larger deceptions waiting in the wings. The notebook came out of my locked drawer. New entry, August 21, 2025. Found hotel receipt in Dee's coat pocket. The Driscoll, Austin TX. 2 nights, premium room. Room service charges including champagne. Dates match Sandra weekend. Sugarland story completely false. Austin is 90 miles away. Wrong direction. Different city. Why Austin? I added Walter in Austin. Need to verify. The pieces were assembling themselves into a picture I didn't want to see. A man named Walter I'd never heard of. A luxury hotel in a city Doris had no business visiting. Jewelry packed for a casual friend visit. Phone calls taken in private corners. The evidence was building like furniture inventory, each piece documented, cross-referenced, waiting for the final assembly that would reveal what I was really looking at. 3 days later, Leland called me from the office. "Dad," he said, his voice carrying an edge I didn't recognize. "Can you come by the store? There's something I need to ask you about." "Everything okay with the business?" "The business is fine. It's something else. Can you come up?" I found him in his office at Blanchard Home Furnishings, sitting behind the desk that used to be mine, staring at his computer screen with an expression that reminded me of Elowen's frightened watching. "What's wrong?" I asked, closing the door behind me. He turned the monitor toward me. "Mom sent me this document this morning. Asked me to sign it as witness. I don't understand what it means." I leaned forward to read the screen. Joint account access authorization. Legal terminology dense and confusing. Phrases like removal of secondary account holder and asset reallocation preparation buried in paragraphs of bureaucratic language. Removal of secondary account holder. The phrase sat on the screen like a threat wrapped in legalese. "Did you ask your mother what this means?" I kept my voice level. "She said it's routine estate planning, that you two discussed it." Leland looked up at me. "Did you?" "No." The word hung between us. Leland's expression shifted from confused to alarmed. "She said it was routine," he repeated, as if saying it again might make it true. I read the document more carefully. The terminology was deliberately opaque, but the intent became clear if you knew how to read legal contracts. This wasn't estate planning. This was removing my access to joint bank accounts. This was preparing to transfer assets without my knowledge or consent. "Don't sign it," I said quietly. "Dad, what's going on?" "I don't know yet, but I need you to trust me. Don't sign anything your mother sends you without showing me first. Can you do that?" Leland nodded slowly, his face pale. "Is everything okay between you and Mom?" His loyalty to his mother was already tipping into complicity in something he didn't yet understand. "I'm working on finding that out," I told him. "In the meantime, can you print me a copy of that document? And don't tell your mother we talked about it." He printed 2 copies without a word, handed me one, and filed the other in his desk drawer. The drawer locked with a small key he pocketed. "Dad," he said as I turned to leave, "if you need anything, if you need help with whatever this is." "I know, thank you." I drove home with the document on the passenger seat, my mind cataloging the new information. Hotel receipts from the wrong city. Legal documents designed to remove my financial access. A son caught between parents he'd trusted equally all his life. Doris was home when I arrived, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop and a cup of tea. She looked up and smiled. "How's Leland?" she asked. "I haven't heard from today." The lie came easily. "Busy with the Henderson account. You know how September orders get." She returned to her screen, unconcerned. I went to my study and locked the door. The document went into my notebook, which went back into the locked drawer. The evidence was accumulating faster than I could process it, each piece more damning than the last. That evening, I walked past Leland's office on my way out. through the window. I could see him still sitting at his desk, staring at the locked drawer where he'd filed his copy. His hand reached for his phone, hesitated, pulled back. He'd wanted to call me, maybe to ask more questions, maybe to share more concerns, maybe just to hear his father say everything would be okay. But some conversations require more courage than a phone call can carry. And some truths are harder to speak than to suspect. Leland didn't call that evening. I didn't expect him to. Some truths are harder to speak than to suspect. 2 days later, Thursday evening, Doris and I sat in the living room with the comfortable silence of decades together. She read a paperback thriller. I held the newspaper but wasn't reading it. I was watching her, cataloging behaviors I'd never noticed before. The way she kept her phone face down on the coffee table, the way she checked it every 7 or 8 minutes, even when no notification sounded. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, silenced it, returned to her book. 3 minutes later, it buzzed again. This time, before she could grab it, the voicemail notification activated. The phone's speaker crackled to life. A man's voice filled the room. Not elderly, mid-60s maybe, warm and familiar. "Dory. Call me back when you can. I miss..." Doris snatched the phone so fast she knocked over her water glass. Water spread across the coffee table, soaking my newspaper. But she was already jabbing at the screen. Deleting, her face flushed red. "Spam callers are getting so personal now," she said. Voice too bright. "It's unsettling. They must scrape names from social media or something." I lowered the newspaper slowly. Want me to make that tea?" "I'll get it." She moved toward the kitchen, phone clutched in her hand. "Need to clean up this mess anyway." She disappeared through the doorway. I sat in the spreading silence. Dory. The nickname I'd given her on our second date in 1987, the one no one else used, and this stranger's voice wrapped around it like he owned it. I heard her in the kitchen. The too loud clink of teacup against saucer. Water running longer than necessary. When she returned 10 minutes later, her face was composed, but her hands trembled. "I think I have a headache coming on," she said. "I'm going to lie down." "Feel better," I told her. Watching her climb the stairs with her phone gripped tight, I sat alone as the room darkened, not bothering to turn on the lamp. The water stain on the coffee table gleamed faintly in the twilight. Dory, spoken with ownership, with affection, with the casual intimacy of someone who'd said it 1,000 times before. "I miss before the cutoff." "Miss what, miss?" "You missed the weekend at the Driscoll." The evidence was accumulating. Walter's name from LON 3 weeks ago. The phone fragment he doesn't suspect anything. The Austin hotel receipt. The legal documents removing my financial access. And now a voice calling my wife by a nickname I'd believed was mine alone. There's a moment in every investigation when you stop gathering information passively and start hunting it actively, when observation becomes action. When you cross a line you can't uncross. I'd reached that moment sitting in my darkening living room while my wife hid upstairs with her phone and her secrets. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through contacts until I found the name I needed. Farah Irvin. My only sister. 64 years old and sharp as broken glass. She'd spent 3 decades as a medical office administrator, building a network of contacts in legal research and public records, exactly the kind of discreet, resourceful ally I needed for what came next. I stepped onto the back porch for privacy and pressed call. She answered on the second ring. "Lawrence, it's almost 10 o'clock. What's wrong?" "Farah." My voice came out lower than intended. "I need to talk to you about something. Tomorrow morning. Can you meet me?" "You sound like you're calling from a bunker." Her concern was immediate. "What's wrong?" "Not on the phone. Can you meet me somewhere? Not here, somewhere quiet." A pause. I heard the calculation in her silence. My sister, who'd helped navigate our father's estate, who'd been the first person I called when Leland was born. who'd never asked questions she knew I wasn't ready to answer. "Memorial Park Cafe," she said finally. 7 tomorrow morning. Too early for crowds. "Thank you." "Larry." She used the childhood nickname she'd dropped 40 years ago. "Are you safe right now?" The question hung between us, layered with implications. Safe from what? Safe from whom? "I'm safe physically," I told her. Another pause. "But not in other ways." "Not in other ways," I confirmed. 7 a.m., she repeated. "I'll be there." She hung up before I could thank her again. I stood on the back porch in the August heat, listening to the cicadas and thinking about threshold moments. About the difference between suspecting and knowing. About the line between marriage and investigation. How do you ask your sister to help you investigate whether your wife of 39 years is leading a double life? The answer was that you didn't ask with words. You asked with tone, with timing, with the weight of everything left unsaid. Farah had heard it all in my voice. The careful control, the late hour, the request for discretion. She'd know what I needed before I said it. Upstairs, I heard water running. Oris preparing for bed, going through her nightly routine as if nothing had happened. As if a stranger's voice hadn't called her by my private nickname in our living room. I went to my study and locked the door. The notebook came out. New entry, August 24, 2025. Male voicemail voice called her Dory. Said, "I miss" before cutoff. D deleted immediately. Claimed spam. Called Farah for help. Meeting 7 a.m. tomorrow. I locked the notebook away and sat in the dark, listening to my wife move around the bedroom above me. Farah had agreed to meet me at 7 in the morning. I asked no questions beyond whether I was safe. What I didn't say was that emotionally, I'd been in freefall since the moment my granddaughter whispered a stranger's name 3 weeks ago. Tomorrow morning, I would stop falling and start building a case. I arrived at Memorial Park Cafe at 6:50. Farah was already there, 2 coffees on the table, sitting in the corner booth farthest from the entrance. The place was empty except for a barista wiping down the espresso machine. I slid into the booth across from her. Before I'd said a word. Before I'd even reached for the coffee. She looked me in the eye and asked, "How long have you known Doris is having an affair?" The directness shouldn't have surprised me. Farah had never been one for small talk, especially not when something mattered. 3 weeks since my granddaughter told me, I said. But I think I've been not seeing it for longer. I pulled out my phone and laid it on the table between us. The photo of the hotel receipt filled the screen. The Driscoll Hotel, Austin, 2 nights, while she was supposedly visiting a college friend in Sugarland. Farah picked up the phone, studied the image. Sandra never existed. I checked every yearbook. I told her about Elowen overhearing the phone call. The vicious phrase, "dirty Leech." About the voicemail fragment 3 days ago. The man's voice calling Doris by the nickname I'd believed was mine alone. About Leland's document designed to remove my access to joint accounts. Farah listened without interrupting, her coffee untouched, her expression shifting from concern to something harder. "Walter," she said when I finished. "That's the name?" "That's the name." "Mean anything to you?" "No, but I'll find out who he is." She pulled out her own phone, opened a notes app. "I've got contacts at the county clerk's office, a friend who does legal research. Give me 3 days. Siblings know things about each other that spouses never learn. We'd shared a childhood. Weathered our father's temper. Buried our mother side by side." Farah saw through my composure instantly. Recognized the controlled devastation for what it was. "I noticed something at the 4th of July barbecue," she said quietly. "Doris was different. Distracted. She checked her phone maybe 20 times in 2 hours. I thought she was just bored with my stories about the office. The timeline shifted in my head. 4th of July was late into summer, but 6 weeks before my birthday. 6 weeks before Elowen's whispered revelation. If Farah had noticed it then, How long had it actually been going on? How long do you think? I asked. Farah met my eyes. At least 6 months, maybe longer. She's been different at every family gathering since spring. The weight of that settled between us. Not 3 weeks, not a few months. Possibly a year or more of careful deception, of double life maintenance, of lies performed so well even her husband hadn't seen them. I'll start with marriage records, Farah said. Property transfers, business registrations, anything that connects Walter to Doris or to Austin. If he's real, he's left a paper trail. Thank you. When I have something, I'll text you lunch confirmed. That way if Doris sees it, it's just us making plans. I nodded. Code. We were establishing codes now, my sister and I, because I couldn't trust my own wife not to read my messages. We finished our coffee in silence. Farah squeezed my hand once before leaving. 3 days, she repeated. I sat alone in the booth for 10 more minutes, thinking about what came next. That weekend, I began the performance. Saturday morning, making breakfast. I asked Doris what our neighbor's name was. The one with the Buick, you know. Lives 3 houses down. She looked up from her newspaper. Harold, honey. We've known Harold for 15 years. Are you feeling all right? Harold, right, of course. I shook my head like clearing fog. Just had a blank moment. Her voice when she corrected me was honey-sweet and patient. The tone you'd use with someone losing their grip on reality. Sunday. I asked what day the garbage went out. Tuesday. I couldn't remember where I'd left my reading glasses, made a show of searching the kitchen while they sat on my head. Wednesday morning. I stood in the garage for a full minute pretending to forget why I'd come out there. Each time. Doris responded with exaggerated patience. She'd guide me gently back to whatever I'd forgotten. Her hand on my arm, her voice soft with concern that felt more like catalog documentation than care. Maybe we should schedule that doctor's appointment we've been putting off, she said Wednesday afternoon, watching me forget which cabinet held the coffee mugs. Just to check, make sure everything's okay. You think I need to see someone? Stuffed my voice uncertain. Just preventive, she said, too quickly. You're 68 now. It's good to get a baseline, memory tests, that sort of thing. Memory tests. Baseline cognitive assessments. Documentation of decline. Pursuing confusion without actually feeling my identity dissolve under the weight of the lie meant holding on to the notebook locked in my study drawer. The evidence accumulating like armor against the person trying to make me disappear. Doris started finishing my sentences when I struggled to find words. She began steering conversations away from anything requiring specific memory dates. Names. Past events. When Leland called to discuss a business matter, she intercepted. Told him I was having one of my foggy days, and she'd have me call back later. I was being carefully, systematically erased. Wednesday evening, over dinner. Doris set down her fork and looked at me with what might have been affection if I didn't know better. I've been thinking, she said. Maybe it's time we updated our estate planning documents, just to make sure everything is organized properly. With you having these memory lapses, we should make sure all our affairs are in order. She smiled when she said it, reaching across the table to pat my hand. I smiled back. You're probably right. We should look into that soon. I'll make some calls tomorrow, she said. Find us a good estate attorney. Whatever you think is best. Dory. Her smile widened at my agreement, at my use of the nickname, at my apparent surrender to her gentle management of my declining faculties. What I didn't tell her was that Farah's text had come through that afternoon. Just 3 words that changed everything. Lunch confirmed. The text from Farah had said lunch confirmed, but she didn't call that night. Or the next morning. I spent Thursday performing my confused husband routine while my phone sat silent, waiting for intelligence I couldn't ask about without revealing I was investigating my own wife. Friday morning. I drove to Blanchard Home Furnishings headquarters. I hadn't set foot in the West Chase District showroom on a weekday morning in 3 years. Not since handing Leland the keys to my 32-year legacy. But I needed to see my son's face when I asked certain questions. Leland looked up from his desk when I walked into his office, surprise flickering across his features before settling into careful welcome. "Dad? Everything okay?" "Just in the neighborhood. Thought I'd stop by, see how things are running." I settled into the chair across from his desk. The same chair where I'd sat for 3 decades making decisions about inventory and expansion and employee benefits. Been thinking about getting a loan in a new bedroom set. Something custom. Wanted to check what we have in stock. We talked about wood finishes and drawer configurations for 10 minutes. Leland relaxing into familiar territory. Then I shifted. "Been noticing any unusual account activity lately?" I kept my voice casual. Curious. "Just wondering about the business health. Old habits." Leland's posture changed. Subtle. But I'd spent 40 years reading body language across negotiating tables. "Dad, you retired. Let me handle operations. Everything's fine." "I'm sure it is. Just curious." I leaned back, watched his hands. "Found some paperwork at home the other day. Transfers I don't recognize." "You know anything about joint account movements?" His hands trembled. Just slightly. Just for a second, but I saw it. "I don't monitor Mom's personal finances," he said, voice tight. "That's between you two." "Of course. I just thought, since she had you witness those documents, I really need to take this call." His desk phone hadn't rung. "Vendor issue. Can we talk later?" My own son had been covering for her. For who knew how long. I stood, nodded, walked out through the showroom I built from nothing. Every piece of furniture represented a decision I'd made, a risk I'd taken, a success I'd earned. And my son, the boy I'd taught to read inventory sheets, who'd swept these floors as a teenager, was protecting the woman trying to destroy me. The call from Farah came 3 days later, Monday afternoon. Not a text this time, an actual phone call while Doris was at the grocery store. "Memorial Park Cafe," she said without preamble. "Outdoor tables, 20 minutes. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a manila folder in front of her and an expression I'd never seen before, part anger, part something darker. "Walter is real," she said as I sat down. "His actual name is Ralph Garrett, 62 years old, commercial HVAC systems inspector, lives in South Austin." I'd known he was real since Elowen whispered his name. But hearing it confirmed, hearing a full name and occupation and location, made him solid, tangible, competition. How long has she been in contact with him? Farah opened the folder, pulled out a printed document. Phone records, columns of numbers and timestamps. 2 years, Larry. This isn't new. The timeline collapsed like a house of cards. Each month I'd trusted her was another layer of foundation built on sand. 2 years. The words came out hollow. That means before the Alaska cruise, before she suggested we downsize the house, before a lot of things. Probably. Farah's expression was grim. The phone records show regular contact, weekly calls, sometimes daily. Text messages I couldn't access, but the frequency is documented. I stared at the spreadsheet, watching 2 years of deception scroll past in neat rows. August 2023, September 2023, October 2023, every month, multiple contacts, every week, sometimes every day. My wife had been talking to this man while I slept beside her, ate breakfast with her, planned our retirement with her. "There's more," Farah said quietly. I looked up. I found property records, cross-referenced addresses. Ralph Garrett owns a house in South Austin. She paused. "Your wife's name appears on utility bills for that address." The cafe sounds faded conversation. Traffic. Birds. I heard only my sister's voice and my own blood pounding. She's been paying his utilities, or living there part-time. I can't tell which yet. Farah pulled out another document, but there's something else. I found a filing at the Travis County Courthouse. That's what I've been trying to verify. My coffee had gone cold. I couldn't remember the last time I'd tasted it. What kind of filings? Farah met my eyes, and I saw something in her face that terrified me more than anything I'd discovered so far. I need 3 more days to confirm, she said. I have to be absolutely certain before I tell you. But Larry, she reached across the table, gripped my hand. There's something worse than an affair. What could possibly be worse than 3 days? Her grip tightened. Don't confront her yet. Don't let her know you're investigating. Whatever you do, keep performing that confused husband routine. I need to verify the courthouse records before you make any moves. Farah, tell me. 3 days, she repeated. I promise I'll call the moment I'm certain, but if I'm right about what I found. She stopped, shook her head. You're going to need a lawyer. A good one. Not for divorce. For something else entirely. She stood, folder tucked under her arm. Don't confront her until I'm certain. Larry, promise me. I promised. I watched her walk to her car, her words echoing in my head. Worse than an affair. Courthouse records. Travis County. Property records with Doris's name on another man's utility bills. The pieces were there, scattered across the table in printed documents and spreadsheets, but I couldn't see the full picture yet. Couldn't understand what courthouse filing could be worse than discovering my wife had spent 2 years building a second life 90 miles away. What could possibly be worse? I drove home from the cafe with Farah's warning echoing in my head. 3 days. Don't confront her. Something worse than an affair. I pulled into the driveway beside Doris's car and sat for a long moment, staring at the house we'd bought 32 years ago, wondering what truth was waiting inside those walls. That night, I lay awake beside my wife. I hadn't slept beside a stranger in 39 years until now. Doris breathed steadily in the darkness, her back to me, one hand tucked under the pillow the way she always slept. The familiar rhythm of her breathing, the slight catch on the inhale she'd had since a childhood bout of pneumonia, the warmth radiating from her side of the bed. All of it familiar, all of it false. 2 years, Farah had said. 2 years of phone calls and text messages and trips to Austin while I'd trusted every word, believed every excuse, accepted every explanation. I watched the ceiling fan turn slow circles in the dim light from the street lamp outside. Farah's documents sat locked in my study drawer. Phone records, property records, whatever courthouse filing she'd found that was worse than infidelity. Evidence accumulating like interest on a debt I hadn't known I owed. Doris stirred, rolled toward me in her sleep. Her hand found my arm, settled there with unconscious familiarity. Then she murmured something, voice thick with sleep. I'll call you Saturday, like always. My breath stopped. The words were barely audible, slurred with sleep, but unmistakable. A routine so automatic it surfaced in dreams, in the unguarded moments when conscious control slipped. Like always. Saturday. Like clockwork. Like ritual. Like a second marriage maintained in parallel to our own. Countless nights, probably, while she planned Saturday morning calls to another man. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I lay still as stone, while Doris breathed beside me, her hand on my arm, her schedule for betrayal so ingrained it echoed in her sleep. Saturday morning. Elowen came over for our weekly visit. Leland had a meeting. Asked if I could watch her for a few hours. I said yes, grateful for the distraction, for the reminder that some relationships in my life were still real. We sat in the backyard under the oak tree, Elowen drawing with sidewalk chalk, while I pretended to read the newspaper. Doris was inside, making lunch, or on the phone. I'd stopped keeping track of which. "Grandpa," Elowen said, not looking up from her chalk drawing. "Why does Grandma have two phones?" My newspaper crinkled in my suddenly tight grip. "Two phones, sweetheart." "Mm-hmm. She has the big one she uses all the time, and the little silver one." Elowen added green leaves to her chalk tree. "She only uses the little one for Uncle Walter." The backyard seemed to tilt. "Uncle Walter," she talks to him every Saturday morning. She always goes in her room and closes the door. But I heard her once when I was getting my shoes. Elowen looked up at me with those two observant eyes. "Is Uncle Walter Grandma's brother? I didn't know she had a brother. What color is the little phone?" "Ellie." "Silver. She keeps it in the zippered part of her purse, the secret pocket." My 8-year-old granddaughter had been a witness all along. "You did nothing wrong by noticing," I told her gently. "But let's keep this between us for now, okay? Just you and me." She nodded solemnly. Returned to her drawing. I waited until Leland picked her up. Waited until Doris left for the grocery store. Then I went to my study and locked the door. The filing cabinet held our financial records, tax returns, insurance policies, and phone bills. I kept them for 7 years. Business habit that Doris had always mocked, saying I was too meticulous, too cautious. I pulled out every phone bill from the past 3 years and spread them across my desk. Our primary account showed the usual, my cell, Doris's cell, the landline we barely used, but tucked into the itemized charges, listed as a separate line on the family account, was a number I didn't recognize. 512 area code, Austin. Account holder, D. Mercer. Doris's maiden name. I traced the charges back through the bills. September 2025, present. August, July, June, back and back, month after month, systematic and deliberate. The paper trail spread across my desk like autopsy evidence, clinical proof of what died and when. May 2023. April. March. January. December 2022. November. And there it was. The activation date printed in small text at the bottom of the August 2022 bill. Secondary line activated June 15, 2022. Not 2 years. 3 years. I sat back in my chair, the bill trembling in my hands. June 2022. That was the month Doris had suggested the Alaska cruise. Our second honeymoon, she'd called it. Surprising me with the booking, saying we needed to reconnect, to remember why we'd fallen in love. We'd spent 2 weeks on a ship, walking decks hand in hand, watching glaciers calve into pristine water, making love in a cabin with ocean views. 1 month after she'd activated a burner phone registered under her maiden name. She'd planned Ralph Garrett into our anniversary trip, had probably called him from ports of call while I napped or showered, had texted him from the bathroom while I stood on the balcony, thinking how lucky I was to have a wife who still wanted to romance me after 36 years. The phone bill showed monthly charges through present. 3 years of parallel communication. 3 years of Saturday morning calls my granddaughter had noticed but I'd missed. 3 years of a second life, maintained with infrastructure separate phone, maiden name registration, systematic patterns. This wasn't an affair. Affairs were messy, impulsive, emotional. This was architecture. This was planning. This was the kind of long-term deception that required intent and maintenance and a willingness to look someone in the eye every single day while living a calculated lie. I photographed every bill, every itemized charge, every instance of the Austin number. The evidence went into my locked drawer alongside Farah's documents. 3 years not the two Farah had found in recent records. Farah's 3-day deadline ended tomorrow, with courthouse proof of what was worse than an affair. Farah's deadline ended tomorrow. I spent Sunday nights staring at phone bills spread across my study desk. 3 years of systematic deception documented in monthly charges. Monday morning. I made a decision that felt like betrayal and survival in equal measure. The estate attorney's nameplate read Martin Ashford, J.D. I'd chosen him because his office was 12 miles from our neighborhood. Far enough that Doris would never know. Far enough that none of our friends would see me walking through his door. Martin Ashford was mid-50s, gray at the temples, with the kind of careful attention that came from decades of helping people protect what they'd built. His handshake was firm, his office understated. Law books, family photos, a view of downtown Houston that probably cost extra in the lease. Mr. Blanchard. He gestured to the leather chair across from his desk. You mentioned on the phone you wanted to discuss estate planning? Updating retirement documents, I said, settling into the chair. Making sure everything is organized properly. Prudent. He pulled out a yellow legal pad. Let's start with your current asset structure. Joint accounts, I assume, given the length of your marriage. 39 years, yes. Everything's joint. And you're looking to... I chose my words carefully. Ensure protection. In case of unexpected circumstances. Ashford's pen paused above the pad. Any reason to separate joint assets at this time? Mr. Blanchard, just prudent planning. The lie came easier than it should have. 40 years in business taught me to prepare for worst-case scenarios. He nodded, made a note. We can certainly structure individual trusts, separate designated accounts. Has there been any duplicate filing activity, second addresses? The question landed like a punch I hadn't seen coming. Duplicate filing, second addresses, the Austin property with Doris's name on the utility bills. I was hiring a lawyer to protect myself from my wife, the woman who'd slept beside me for 14,000 nights. I'm not sure, I managed. That's part of what I need to understand. What protections are available if there were irregularities? Ashford set down his pen, leaned back. Mr. Blanchard, I need to ask directly. Are you concerned about fraud, asset misappropriation? I'm concerned about being prepared. Fair enough. He pulled out a form. Let's start with documentation. I'll need statements for all joint accounts, property deeds, insurance policies. We'll review everything and identify vulnerabilities. We spent an hour going through financial architecture I'd built over 4 decades. Every joint account felt like exposure now. Every shared asset a weapon Doris could turn against me. Ashford took notes, asked questions, treated my paranoia like reasonable caution. I'll prepare preliminary documents, he said as we finished. Asset separation strategies, trust structures, give me a week. I drove home with his business card in my pocket, feeling like I'd crossed a threshold I couldn't uncross. Lawyer. I'd hired a lawyer, against my wife. Farah's car was in my driveway when I got home. She sat on my front porch, manila envelope in her lap. Her expression unreadable. Doris's car was gone, Bridge Club Monday. I remembered automatically, the kind of detail that proved I'd been paying attention to all the wrong things. Let's go inside, Farah said quietly. We went to my study. I locked the door. She laid the envelope on my desk without ceremony. You were right to wait, she said. You were right to make me certain. She opened the envelope and pulled out a document. Official paper, heavy stock, an embossed seal in the corner. She married him. Larry, October 19, 2023. Travis County, Texas. The certificate was real, embossed seal, county clerk's signature. Typed names in formal script, Doris Mercer and Ralph Eugene Garrett, husband and wife, October 19, 2023. 22 months ago. While still married to me. We're still married, I said, the words feeling hollow. I would have been served papers. Divorce proceedings. That's the point. Farah's voice was gentle. She never filed. You're both legally married to her. It's bigamy. Larry. The word sat between us like a detonation. Bigamy. Not affair, not deception, criminal fraud. How is that possible? How did she? Texas doesn't cross-check marriage applications against existing marriages unless there's a flag in the system. She used her maiden name Doris Mercer, listed herself as unmarried. The clerk had no reason to question it. I stared at the certificate. The name swam. Doris Mercer, not Doris Blanchard. My wife had married another man using a name that technically belonged to her, but erased me entirely. Both marriages are technically valid. Farah continued. Under Texas law, the second marriage doesn't automatically void. She'd need to be prosecuted. And you'd need to divorce her on fault grounds fraud. Since she never told you about any of this. She's been married to both of us for almost 2 years. Yes. I no longer knew which wedding anniversary she'd been celebrating when she kissed me goodnight, ours or theirs. The phone records you found, Farah said. The property with her name on utilities. The Austin address. She's not just having an affair. Larry, she's maintaining 2 complete legal identities, 2 marriages, probably 2 households, with hands that wanted to shake but wouldn't. The paper was official, legal, permanent, county seal, witness signatures, filed and recorded. October 19, 2023. That was the weekend she'd gone to that supposed estate sale in San Antonio. Came home with a vintage mirror she claimed was a steal. Kissed me hello. Showed me photos of furniture she'd almost bought. She'd married Ralph Garrett and come home to me the same weekend. There's more, Farah said, pulling out another document. I found the property deed. The Austin house is in both their names, Doris Mercer and Ralph Garrett. Purchased March 2023, 7 months before the wedding. She bought a house with him. They bought a house together. Then they got married. She's been building a complete second life. The marriage certificate listed her as Doris Mercer, age 63, maiden name. Understated age by 2 years. The same identity on the burner phone account activated June 2022. She'd been building a second legal existence for 3 years. Brick by brick, document by document, phone, property, marriage, all under the name Doris Mercer, while Doris Blanchard slept beside me and planned estate updates and suggested I see a doctor for my memory. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed beside my bigamist wife, staring at the ceiling. Farah's words echoing she's been building a second legal identity for 3 years. When dawn came, I got up and made coffee. Like I had every morning for 39 years, because I didn't know what else to do. I poured her coffee the way I always had. 2 sugars, cream to the rim, and watched her smile like I was the only husband she'd ever had. Doris sat across the kitchen table from me. Morning light catching her silver-streaked hair, her reading glasses perched on her nose as she scrolled through her phone. Our phone. Not the burner registered to Doris Mercer, but the one attached to our family plan. The one she used for grocery lists and bridge club schedules and all the mundane infrastructure of a life we'd built together. Or a life I'd thought we'd built together. 4 days at the retreat, she said, not looking up from her screen. I'll be back Saturday. The Henderson's daughter is getting married next month. We should think about a gift. Maybe that crystal vase set from the store. Sure. Whatever you think is best. She looked up, smiled. Maybe we should start planning something special for our 40th next year. Big milestone. 40 years. Hard to believe, I said, the words tasting like ash. Best decision I ever made, marrying you. She stood, kissed my cheek, her hand resting briefly on my shoulder. I'll start packing. The retreat starts tomorrow morning, so I'll leave early. I watched her leave the kitchen. Watched her wedding ring catch the light. Except now I noticed something I'd been too blind to see before. The ring looked slightly different than it had last month. Slightly wider band, different setting. She was planning our 40th anniversary while married to another man. And she'd been alternating wedding rings for 2 years. Hiding Ralph Garrett's band in plain sight. And I'd never noticed. Never questioned why her ring occasionally looked different. attributing it to cleaning or lighting or my own inattention. I sat alone in the kitchen after she went upstairs, staring at my coffee, thinking about Martin Ashford's question yesterday. Any reason to separate joint assets at this time? I had a reason now. That afternoon, I drove to our bank branch in the Memorial area. Sharon Rutledge had been our relationship manager for over a decade. Early 50s, with the kind of professional warmth that came from genuinely caring about client relationships. She'd helped us refinance the house, set up Leland's first business account, advised us through retirement portfolio adjustments. Mr. Blanchard. She stood when I entered her office, shook my hand. Good to see you. What can I help you with today? Just wanted to review our account structure, I said, settling into the chair across from her desk. Making sure everything is organized properly. Retirement planning. Of course. She pulled up our accounts on her computer. Your joint checking and savings are healthy. The money market account has been performing well. Good to hear. I kept my voice casual. Any recent activity I should know about? Large transactions, that sort of thing? Nothing out of the ordinary. She scrolled through recent statements. Although, she paused, looked up. Your wife was in last week asking about withdrawal protocols. Joint account access, naturally. My stomach dropped. But I kept my face neutral. Oh, just general questions, I'm sure. She asked specifically about moving the full balance. Sharon's tone was matter-of-fact, professional. $520,000. Whether both signatures were required for transfers over $100,000. The number hung in the air between us. Our entire liquid net worth, accumulated over 40 years of work. The furniture business proceeds, retirement savings, everything that wasn't tied up in the house or Leland's business. The joint account sat between us like a vault she'd been casing for years, waiting for the right moment to crack. Did she say why? I asked, keeping my voice level. Estate planning, she mentioned. Wanting to understand the procedures. Sharon pulled up a different screen. For transfers over $100,000, we do require both signatories. Below that threshold. Either account holder can authorize independently. I see. When did she ask about this? Last Thursday, I believe. Let me check. Sharon scrolled through her calendar. Yes, Thursday afternoon. She came in right before closing. Last Thursday. The same day Doris had suggested the garden club retreat over dinner, casually mentioning 4 days away, coming back Saturday. She'd clearly been scheduling this for a while, coordinating retreat dates with bank transfer windows. The pieces assembled themselves with brutal clarity. Garden club retreat starting tomorrow, 4 days away from home. 4 days of alibi while bank transactions processed. She'd researched the withdrawal procedures, identified the vulnerability. Anything under the 100,000 threshold required only one signature, and planned her absence to coincide with whatever she intended to do. Is everything all right, Mr. Blanchard? Sharon's professional concern showed through. You look concerned. Just surprised she's thinking about this without mentioning it. I forced a smile. Marriage. Sometimes communication gets crossed. Of course. She printed out current account statements, handed them across the desk. If you'd like to discuss account restructuring or additional security measures, I'm happy to schedule a consultation. That might be good. Let me think about it. I drove home with the statements on the passenger seat, Sharon's words replaying in my head. Your wife asked whether both signatures were required for transfers over $100,000. Past tense, not hypothetical future planning. She'd already identified the vulnerability. Anything under that threshold needed only one signature. Doris could walk into any branch, withdraw $99,000, and I wouldn't be notified until the transaction posted. She could do it multiple times, different branches, different days, drain the accounts in increments while maintaining plausible deniability. And she'd timed the garden club retreat to give herself 4 days of cover. The retreat started tomorrow morning. 4 days for her to execute whatever financial strike she'd planned. 4 days for me to act before she destroyed everything I'd spent 40 years building. I had 4 days while Doris was at the retreat. 4 days to act before she returned expecting normal anniversary planning. Before she executed whatever financial strike she'd choreographed with bank withdrawal research and garden club alibis. The next morning, I drove back to Martin Ashford's office with Farah's manila envelope. Martin Ashford's expression changed the moment I laid the Travis County marriage certificate on his desk, professional composure cracking into something closer to alarm. "Mr. Blanchard!" He picked up the certificate with careful fingers, studied the embossed seal, the signatures, the date. "Where did you get this?" "My sister. She has contacts at the county clerk's office." He read it twice, set it down, looked at me with something between sympathy and legal calculation. "This is bigamy, criminal fraud. Your marriage may be voidable under Texas law. Can we freeze the joint accounts before she executes whatever she's planning? Let me pull your account records." He turned to his computer, fingers moving across the keyboard. "You said she'd been asking about withdrawal procedures last Thursday. The bank manager mentioned it yesterday." Ashford's typing stopped. His face went very still. "Mr. Blanchard, did you authorize a fund transfer scheduled for September 3rd? My stomach dropped. "No, she's already filed authorization." He turned the monitor toward me. "Full balance transfer from your joint account to an account ending in 7743. September 3rd. Scheduled for 9 a.m. processing." The numbers on the screen swam. September 3rd. I pulled out my phone, checked the calendar. 7 days. She'd given herself exactly 1 week between champagne toasts and grand larceny. "That's 7 days after our anniversary party," I said quietly. "August 27th is the party. September 3rd is the theft." Ashford sat back, understanding settling across his features. "She's planning to celebrate with you. Accept gifts from family and friends. Then execute the transfer while the party's still fresh in everyone's memory. Can you stop it?" "With this marriage certificate as evidence of fraud, yes. I can file an emergency motion to freeze all joint assets, citing the bigamy as evidence of criminal intent. But," he paused, "that alerts her immediately. She'll know you've discovered everything. How long until the freeze could be in place?" 72 hours if I filed today. By Friday. I thought about Doris returning from the retreat Saturday, coming home to frozen accounts, knowing I'd uncovered her. The confrontation would happen in our kitchen, private and small, just the two of us. Or I could give her something else. "Hold off on the freeze," I said. "Give me until Monday." "Mr. Blanchard, if she attempts to transfer funds before then, she won't. She's already scheduled it for September 3rd. She thinks she has time." Ashford looked uncertain, but nodded. "Monday morning, then. But after that, I'm filing regardless." I drove home with the weight of the timeline settling in my chest. August 27th, anniversary party. September 3rd, financial betrayal. She'd planned it like a campaign, timed it like theater. Why settle for asset protection when I could give her an anniversary gift she'd never forget the truth? Delivered in front of everyone who mattered, the idea formed slowly. Sitting alone in my study while Doris was 90 miles away at her retreat. Revenge through exposure. Not courtrooms. Justice through witnesses, not lawyers. She wanted to celebrate our 40th before stealing everything. Let's make it a celebration she'd never forget. I pulled out Farah's file. Found Ralph Garrett's contact information. Phone number, Austin address. The man my wife had married while still married to me. What if I invited him to the anniversary party? What if I brought both of Doris's husbands together in the same room, in front of 40 family members and friends, and let the truth detonate in real time? The anniversary party had been her exit stage. I was turning it into her courtroom. She'd planned to toast our 40 years. Accept congratulations, smile for photos, then walk away with our entire liquid net worth a week later. But what if her second husband showed up to celebrate with us? What if Ralph Garrett walked through our backyard gate expecting to meet his wife's Houston friends, only to discover she'd never mentioned being married to someone else? Public exposure. Complete humiliation. 40 witnesses who'd never let her forget. I sat in my study as afternoon faded to evening, thinking through the logistics. The anniversary party was 10 days away. Doris would return from the retreat Saturday, expecting normal party planning to continue. I'd need to contact Ralph Garrett. Craft an invitation that wouldn't reveal the trap. Time his arrival perfectly. It was audacious. Possibly cruel. Definitely permanent. I called Farah. She answered on the first ring. Larry, did you talk to the attorney? I did. Doris has a withdrawal scheduled for September 3rd, 7 days after the anniversary party. Farah swore quietly. Can he freeze the accounts? He can. But I have a different idea. I took a breath. I want to invite Ralph Garrett to the anniversary party. Silence on the line. Long, heavy silence. You want to what? I want Ralph Garrett at our anniversary party on August 27th. I want him to meet his wife's husband. I want 40 witnesses to see what she's done. More silence. Then, quietly. Larry, are you absolutely certain you want to do this publicly? She scheduled the theft for 7 days after our party. Farah, she's planning to smile for photos, cut cake, accept toasts from our friends, then drain our accounts while those same people are still thanking her for the lovely evening. My voice was calm, cold. I'm giving her the audience she deserves. Public exposure like this. There's no coming back from it, not for her, not for your marriage, not for your family's reputation. My marriage ended in October 2023 when she married someone else. I just didn't know it yet. Farah breathed out slowly. What do you need me to do? Help me find the right words to invite a man to a party without telling him it's his wife's other anniversary. Another pause. Then, 10 days. You have 10 days to orchestrate this. I know. And when Doris comes home Saturday expecting normal party planning, I'll plan the party, I said. I'll discuss menu options and table arrangements and guest lists. I'll be the devoted husband preparing to celebrate 40 years. And on August 27th, I'll introduce her to our special guest. Farah came over the next morning to help me find Ralph Garrett. Not the marriage certificate version, I had that. The real man. The one I'd be inviting to destroy my wife in 9 days. She spread the Travis County marriage certificate across my kitchen table alongside her laptop, already pulling up property records and business licenses before I'd finished making coffee. Ralph Eugene Garrett, she read from the screen. Licensed HVAC inspector since 1998. Home address in South Austin matches the property deed I found earlier. I sat across from her, watching information accumulate about a man I'd never met but would soon use as a weapon. Professional licensing showed decades of steady work, commercial HVAC systems. Certifications renewed on schedule. No disciplinary actions. Tax records indicated modest income. Nothing extravagant. Does he look like he knows she's still married to me? I asked. Farah clicked through to social media, found his Facebook profile. He posted anniversary photos from last October. She turned the laptop toward me. Ralph Garrett and Doris Mercer. I corrected myself, standing in front of what looked like a restaurant, champagne glasses raised, smiling at the camera. The caption read, "1 year with my beautiful wife. Best decision I ever made." Ralph Garrett's smile in the anniversary photo looked exactly like mine had in ours, proud, oblivious, trusting. She's fooled him too, Farah said quietly. Look at his other posts. He talks about her constantly. My wife made dinner, weekend with my wife. He believes this is real. I stared at the screen. More photos Ralph and Doris at a farmer's market. Ralph and Doris on what looked like a hiking trail. Ralph and Doris in his living room, the house they'd bought together, watching television with the casual intimacy of people who'd built a life. "He has no idea," I said. "No idea," Farah confirmed. "Which means when you invite him to your anniversary party, he'll think he's meeting his wife's Houston friends. He'll show up expecting a nice evening. And instead he'll discover she's been married to someone else the entire time." Farah closed the laptop. "Larry, are you sure about this? He's a victim too. You're going to destroy his life along with hers." "She destroyed his life when she married him fraudulently. I'm just bringing the truth into daylight." We copied Ralph's phone number, email address, home address, everything I'd need to extend an invitation that would detonate both their worlds. My phone rang while we were finishing. Leland's name on the screen. "Dad." His voice was shaking. "Dad, there's an email on Mom's computer. I need to talk to you." Farah looked at me, concern flickering across her face. "What kind of email?" "Divorce attorney. Something about asset separation, September timeline." He sounded young, frightened. "What's going on? Why is Mom planning to divorce you?" My son had discovered his mother's divorce plans before I could tell him about her bigamy. "Where are you?" I asked. "At the store. I was using Mom's laptop for inventory, and the email was just open. Subject line says, repost decree asset separation timeline." "Dad, what the hell is happening?" "Don't do anything. Don't call your mother. I'll be there in 20 minutes. "Is it true? Is she divorcing you?" 20 minutes. "Leland, we need to talk in person." I hung up, grabbed my keys. Farah stood. "What did he find?" she asked. "Divorce attorney email. Post-decree asset separation. September timeline." Farah's face went pale. "Post-decree? That means after the divorce is finalized. She's not just planning to take the money. Larry! She's planning to divorce you immediately after to protect what she's stolen through legal separation." The pieces assembled with brutal clarity. Withdraw the money early September. File for divorce simultaneously. By the time I discovered the theft, she'd claim it was marital assets she was entitled to divide. Use the divorce proceedings to shield the stolen funds. "I have to go," I said. "Leland's falling apart." "Do you want me to come?" "No. This is something I need to do alone." I drove to Blanchard Home Furnishings, my mind racing. Leland knew about divorce plans, but not bigamy, not Ralph Garrett, not the anniversary party trap, not that his mother was a criminal, not just someone seeking divorce. How do you tell your 41-year-old son that his mother is a criminal, not just a cheater? I found him in his office, door closed, staring at his mother's laptop screen with the expression of someone watching their world collapse in real time. "Dad." He looked up when I entered. "Please tell me this isn't real." I closed the door, sat in the chair across from his desk. The same chair where he'd deflected my questions about financial documents weeks ago. The same office where I'd watched his hands tremble when I'd mentioned account irregularities. "What exactly does the email say?" I asked. "See for yourself." He turned the laptop toward me. The email was from a Houston family law firm. Subject, repost decree asset separation timeline. The body outlined procedures for transferring assets immediately following divorce decree. Strategies for claiming marital property division. Timeline for execution. Early September per your specification. She scheduled the money transfer for September 3rd. I said quietly. This email is about protecting the theft legally by filing for divorce at the same time. Leland's face drained of color. "Theft what money?" "Our joint account. $520,000. She's been planning this for months, maybe longer." Why would she?" He stopped, unable to finish the question. "Because she's not who we thought she was," I said. "And there's more you need to know. Things that are going to be very hard to hear." Leland sat in his office staring at that email subject line. Repost decree asset separation timeline. Knowing his mother planned divorce, but not knowing about bigamy. The second marriage, or the August 27th, I had 9 days until the anniversary party. 9 days to tell my son that his mother had committed criminal fraud. 9 days to watch my son's last illusions about his mother shatter. But first, I had to find the words to explain that everything he'd believed about our family was a carefully constructed lie. I told Leland to meet me in the study at 9. No excuses, no delays. When he knocked 3 hesitant taps like a child summoned to the principal's office, I already knew this conversation would crack something open between us that 41 years hadn't prepared either of us for. "Sit," I said. He sat. His hands trembled as he gripped the armrests. "Dad, I need to tell you something. About those documents Mom had me sign." 6 months ago, I said. Not a question. His face went pale. "How did you—" "Because I've been piecing together every move she made. Leland. Every lie. Every signature. And I know you signed estate planning documents without reading them." He looked at the floor. "She said it was routine. Power of attorney updates. I trusted her." I pulled the bigamy certificate from my desk drawer, slid it across the mahogany surface. "Ralph Eugene Garrett, October 19th, 2023. This county, Texas. Your mother married another man while still married to me." Leland stared at the document like it might bite him. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came. "She's planning to withdraw $520,000 from our joint account on September 3rd. I continued. "The anniversary party on August 27th isn't a celebration. It's a trap. I'm going to expose her bigamy in front of everyone who matters. Our friends, our business partners, our family. And you're going to help me." "I signed those documents," he whispered. "I enabled this." "Yes," I said. "You did." What do you say to a son who realizes he's been weaponized against his own father? Leland's shock morphed into something colder, harder. His jaw set the way mine does when negotiation ends and action begins. "What do you need from me?" "Loyalty," I said. "Complete silence until the party. Can you give me that?" "She made me an accomplice." His voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. "Yeah, Dad, you've got my loyalty." We shook hands across the desk. Not father and son. Conspirators. I waited until he left before I let myself exhale. One piece in place. Now for the bigger gamble, the man who thought he'd married my wife. Before I reveal how Ralph reacted when I called him, I need to know, do you think Ralph Garrett is innocent or complicit? Comment innocent if you believe Doris deceived him too. Or complicit if you think he knew about the bigamy. This story is fictionalized for dramatic effect. Real-life fraud should involve legal professionals immediately. The next afternoon, I dialed Ralph Garrett's number with a script I'd rehearsed 20 times. My heart hammered against my ribs. One wrong word, and the entire plan collapses. 3 rings. 4. "Hello." The voice was warm, textured with the slight rasp of a man who'd spent decades around HVAC units and construction sites. Working class. Earnest. "Ralph Garrett. Speaking." "Who's this?" "My name's Lawrence Blanchard. I'm a business colleague of Doris's from the Houston furniture industry." The lie tasted like battery acid. "I'm calling because we're organizing a surprise anniversary celebration for her on August 27th, and I wanted to personally invite you." Silence on the other end. Then, "Anniversary celebration. 39 years, I said, injecting false cheer into my voice. "We're gathering her closest friends and family at the River Oaks estate for an evening she'll never forget." Well, I'll be damned. Ralph's voice softened with something that sounded disturbingly like affection. She mentioned her anniversary was coming up. But I didn't realize she had business friends planning something this elaborate. She mentioned her anniversary. Not our anniversary, hers. As if it existed independent of which husband she was talking to. How do you invite your wife's other husband to witness her public destruction without your voice breaking up? It's going to be quite the event, I said. Black tie optional, cocktails at 7, dinner at 8. I really think your presence would mean a lot to her. I appreciate the invitation. Lawrence, yeah, I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it. Excellent. I'll have my assistant send you the formal details address. Parking instructions, the works. Sounds great. Hey, thanks for thinking of me. I hung up, stared at my phone. Ralph Garrett had just accepted an invitation to his own humiliation with the enthusiasm of a man who believed himself loved. Farah called 10 minutes later. Did you do it? He's coming, I said. August 27th. He'll walk into that party thinking he's honoring his wife. And Leland on our side now. He knows what he signed. He knows what she did. Then we have everyone in place, Farah said. Doris, Ralph, Leland, the guests, all the pieces on the board. Almost everyone, I said. There's still one person who doesn't know she's about to lose everything. Farah's voice carried grim satisfaction. Not for long. I hung up and walked to the window. Outside, Doris's Mercedes pulled into the driveway. She emerged in a cream sundress, shopping bags dangling from both arms, her face radiant with the confidence of someone who believed her secrets were still safe. She had no idea I'd just invited her second husband to witness her first marriage's revenge. 10 days until the party. 10 days until I detonate 39 years of lies in front of everyone who ever believed in Doris Blanchard's carefully constructed fiction. But first, I needed to prepare one more surprise, something even Farah didn't know about yet. The string lights cast everything in golden warmth. 40 guests. Champagne flutes, my wife's laughter floating across the backyard like she hadn't spent 2 years planning my financial ruin. White tablecloths, catered shrimp cocktail, a 3-tier anniversary cake positioned near the rose garden with Lawrence and Doris, 40 years, piped in royal blue frosting. Colleagues from the furniture business mingled with neighbors and old friends, all of them believing they'd gathered to celebrate a marriage that exemplified longevity and devotion. If only they knew. Doris moved through the crowd in a navy dress that probably cost more than most guests earned in a week, accepting compliments with practiced grace. She touched arms, laughed at jokes, refilled wine glasses, the perfect hostess, the devoted wife. I checked my watch. 7:15. Ralph Garrett should arrive within 15 minutes. Leland stood near the buffet table, with Alwyn perched on his hip, her small fingers clutching a juice box. Our eyes met across the crowd. He gave me the slightest nod. Ready. Positioned. Waiting for the bomb to drop. Farah had stationed herself near the front of the house, ostensibly greeting late arrivals. In reality, she was my early warning system the moment Ralph's car pulled into the driveway. I'd know. Lawrence. Harold Prescott clapped me on the shoulder, bourbon breath washing over me. 40 years, you old dog. What's the secret? Patience, I said, and attention to detail. Hear, hear. Harold raised his glass. The gesture rippled through nearby guests until someone clinked a fork against crystal, and the backyard fell into expectant silence. Doris materialized beside me, slipping her hand into mine with the ease of 4 decades' practice. Her palm was warm, dry, steady, no tremor of guilt, no hesitation. "Speech, speech!" someone called. Doris squeezed my hand and turned to our guests with a smile that could have sold ice to Alaskans. Thank you all for being here tonight. 40 years is a milestone, and we couldn't imagine celebrating it without the people who've made our lives so rich. Applause. I felt my jaw tighten. Every marriage has its seasons. Doris continued, her voice carrying that practiced warmth she used with major clients. Spring's excitement, summer's growth, autumn's harvest. Winter's reflection. I'm grateful for all of them. Winter's reflection. She'd already mentally transitioned, hadn't she? This marriage was the concluded chapter. Ralph Garrett was her spring. We stood under those string lights like actors on a stage, waiting for the curtain to drop. More applause. Someone shouted, "To Lawrence and Doris, a model marriage." Glasses clinked. People drank. Doris released my hand to accept a hug from Eleanor Morrison, who'd flown in from Dallas specifically for tonight. "You two give the rest of us hope," Eleanor said, dabbing at her eyes. "True devotion is so rare these days." "We're blessed," Doris said. I excused myself to refill my scotch. Moved through the crowd toward the bar station we'd set up near the back fence. The bartender, a kid barely old enough to serve, hired through the catering company, poured me 3 fingers of Macallan without being asked. "Big night, sir," he said. "Bigger than you know," I muttered. 7:20. 10 minutes. Maybe less. I turned back toward the party and found Doris talking with the Hendersons. Or were they the Carlsons? I'd known these people for 15 years. Attended their daughter's wedding. Their son's graduation. But tonight, every detail felt slippery, uncertain. Time to sell the performance. I approached Doris and touched her elbow. "Sweetheart, remind me, is that the Henderson couple or the Carlsons?" She turned, surprise flickering across her features before settling into patient indulgence. "The Hendersons, dear. We've known them 15 years. Are you feeling all right?" Fine. Just wanted to make sure I got it right." I watched her posture shift, shoulders relaxing, confidence growing. She thought I was slipping. The absent-minded elderly husband who couldn't keep his guests straight. Harmless. Manageable. No threat at all. Let her think I'm the fool. 5 more minutes. I wandered to the dessert table and pretended to struggle with remembering whether Janet Kowalski preferred chocolate or vanilla. Asked Leland to remind me which business partner had retired last spring. Fumbled with my phone trying to take a photo of Elowen, nearly dropping it twice. Doris swept in each time to gently correct me, her voice dripping with patronizing affection. "That's Michael's wife. Lawrence. We had dinner with them last month." Of course. Memory's not what it used to be. She touched my arm with the same hand that wore Ralph Garrett's wedding ring last October. The bartender circulated with a champagne tray. Guests took fresh glasses, their conversations building into a warm hum of contentment. Someone turned up the music jazz standards. Sinatra crooning about summer wind and tender traps. Ironic, really. I positioned myself near the center of the backyard, where I could see both the side gate and Doris simultaneously. She'd drifted toward a cluster of her book club friends, laughing at something Patricia Thornton said. Her face glowed with genuine pleasure. She was enjoying this, the attention, the admiration, the performance of marital success. She had no idea these would be the last moments anyone in this backyard believed a word she said. 7:26. 7:27. My heart hammered against my ribs, not fear. Something closer to vindication. Elowen ran past, chasing a firefly. Her laughter cutting through adult conversation like wind chimes. Leland caught my eye again. He knew. He'd signed those documents 6 months ago. Enabled the theft without knowing. And now he stood in this backyard, waiting for his mother's public destruction with the same cold resolve I felt. 7:28. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out slowly, keeping my expression neutral. One text, from Farah. "Walter just pulled into driveway." I looked up. Across the backyard. Doris threw her head back, laughing at something Eleanor said, accepting another compliment about our model marriage. 4 people watched her perform happiness. 40 witnesses. No escape route. No warning. No time. 30 seconds until Ralph Garrett walked through that side gate. 30 seconds until my wife's carefully constructed double life detonated in front of everyone who mattered. I pocketed my phone and started walking toward the gate to personally welcome our special guest. Ralph Garrett stood at my side gate holding a bottle of wine, smiling like a man about to meet his wife's friends, which, in his understanding of reality, he was. He was shorter than I'd imagined, maybe 5'10", with the weathered hands and sun-creased face of someone who'd spent decades working with tools in Texas heat. Mid-60s, salt and pepper hair thinning at the crown, wore khakis and a button-down shirt that had been pressed but still carried the rumpled softness of a man uncomfortable in dress clothes. The earnest smile of someone genuinely excited to make a good impression. My wife's second husband. Mr. Blanchard. He extended his hand. Ralph Garrett. Thanks so much for including me tonight. I know anniversary parties are usually family affairs. I gripped his hand. Firm handshake, calloused palm. Genuine warmth in his eyes. Please, call me Lawrence. Any friend of Doris's is family here. Come on in! Everyone's out back! Sorry I'm a bit late. Austin traffic was murder getting out of town. He held up the wine bottle. Brought a Malbec. Hope that's all right. Perfect. Let me take that for you. I guided him along the side path toward the backyard, making small talk about the drive, the weather, the house. He responded with the easy conversation of a man who worked with people for a living, asking polite questions about the neighborhood, complimenting the landscaping. Mentioned he'd always heard good things about Houston's restaurant scene. Doris talks about the city all the time, he said as we approached the glow of string lights. I'm excited to finally see where she spends her time. Where she spends her time. Not where she lives, not her home. Just time spent in a city that existed separate from whatever narrative she'd constructed for him in Austin. I was shaking hands with the man my wife had married while I slept beside her. She's got a lot of friends here, I said. My voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding my system. Business connections going back decades. You'll like everyone. I'm sure I will. She's got great taste in people. We reached the edge of the backyard. Music and laughter spilled across the lawn. 40 guests scattered in clusters. Champagne glasses catching the light. The anniversary cake gleaming white in the distance. Doris stood near the center of the crowd with Eleanor Morrison and Patricia Thornton, mid-laugh about something. Her face animated with the joy of being the evening's center of attention. She hadn't seen us yet. Ralph paused, taking in the scene. Wow, this is quite the setup. You really went all out. 40 years deserves something special, I said. Then I raised my voice, projecting across the backyard. Doris! Sweetheart! Look who drove all the way from Austin. Ralph Garrett. Heads turned. Conversations paused. 40 guests pivoted toward us with the polite curiosity of people meeting a new arrival. Doris turned too. The transformation happened in stages. First the automatic hostess smile, gracious, welcoming, prepared to greet another guest. Then recognition. Her eyes widened. The smile froze. Then crumbled. Color drained from her face like someone had opened a tap. The wine glass slipped from her fingers. It hit the flagstone with a crack that silenced the entire party. Champagne spread across the patio in a dark stain. Shattered crystal glittered under the string lights. No one moved to clean it up. Everyone was staring at Doris. Then at Ralph. Then at me. Surprise, Ralph said, smiling, still oblivious. He raised a hand in a small wave. You didn't tell me your anniversary was this weekend. When Lawrence called and invited me, I thought, why not? Make a weekend trip out of it. Doris's mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. I drove straight from work. Ralph continued, his smile starting to waver as he registered her expression. Didn't even have time to change. But I figured, family celebrations are more important than... He stopped, looked at me, looked back at her. Honey, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Honey. He'd called her honey in front of 40 witnesses. Eleanor Morrison's hand flew to her mouth. Harold Prescott's bourbon glass froze halfway to his lips. Leland materialized at the edge of my vision. Elwyn no longer on his hip, he'd handed her off to someone, positioned himself to watch this unfold. Patricia Thornton whispered to the woman beside her, too loud in the sudden silence. "Who is that man?" Doris finally found her voice. Barely a whisper. "Ralph, what are you? You can't be here." Can't be. Confusion flickered across his weathered features. "Lawrence invited me. He said it was a celebration for—" He stopped. Looked at me again. Really looked this time. Saw my hand resting possessively on the back of the patio chair. Saw the way I stood beside the anniversary cake with my name piped next to Doris's. Saw 40 years of photographs displayed on the memory table behind me. Wedding pictures, vacation snapshots, images of a life built together. Saw. Perhaps the cold satisfaction in my eyes. "I don't understand," Ralph said slowly. His voice had changed, harder, wary. "Doris, what's going on? Who is this man?" "My name is Lawrence Blanchard," I said clearly, every word carrying across the silent backyard. "Doris's husband. We were married August 27th, 1987. 39 years ago tonight." Ralph's face went slack. We stood there like 3 points of a triangle drawn in blood, husband, wife, husband. No one spoke. No one moved. Sinatra crooned from the speakers about summer wind, grotesquely cheerful against the devastation spreading across 3 faces in real time. Farah had moved to stand near Leland. I caught her eye. She gave the smallest nod. Positioned, ready. Everyone who needed to witness this was watching. Doris Blanchard, furniture executive, devoted wife, gracious hostess, mother. Grandmother stood frozen between her 2 husbands, with broken glass at her feet and 40 witnesses watching her carefully constructed world collapse. Ralph's confusion was hardening into something else. Understanding. The pieces clicking into place. His face shifted from bewilderment to comprehension to something that looked like physical pain. "Doris," he said, his voice cracking on her name. "Tell me this isn't what I think it is." 40 guests stared at the frozen tableau, Doris white as death. Ralph's smile dying into devastation. And me standing between them like a referee at ground zero. Someone in the crowd whispered again. Louder this time. "Oh my God, she has 2 husbands." Ralph Garrett's voice cut through the silence like breaking glass. "Doris, what the hell is going on? Whose anniversary party is this?" Doris opened her mouth, closed it. Her hands trembled at her sides. "Ralph, it's complicated." "Complicated?" His voice rose. The easy warmth from 10 minutes ago had vanished, replaced by something raw and sharp. "You told me you were divorced." "You said Houston was your fresh start city after your marriage ended. You said—" He stopped, looked at me, looked at the cake with our names on it, looked back at her. "How long have you been married to him?" "Please," Doris whispered. "Can we talk about this privately?" "Privately?" Ralph's laugh held no humor. "You brought me to your husband's anniversary party, and you want to discuss this privately." Eleanor Morrison backed away slowly, champagne flute forgotten in her hand. Harold Prescott pulled out his phone. Whether to record or call someone, I couldn't tell. Leland appeared at the edge of the crowd, with Farah beside him, both watching Doris's destruction with expressions I couldn't read. 39 years, I said quietly. "We've been married 39 years, Ralph, since 1987. Ralph's face cycled through emotions too fast to name. 39. He turned back to Doris. "We got married last October. You wore a white dress. We had champagne at that little chapel here in Austin. You cried when I put the ring on your finger. Someone in the crowd gasped. Patricia Thornton clutched her pearls like she'd stepped into a soap opera filming. You told me I was your second chance. Ralph continued, his voice cracking. You said your first husband died. You showed me photos of his funeral. Whose funeral, I thought distantly. Who did she bury in my place? Ralph, if you'd just let me explain. Doris reached for him. He stepped back. The transfer papers. The ones you had me sign last week. Doris went very still. You said they were for our joint retirement account. Ralph said slowly, understanding dawning across his weathered features like a brutal sunrise. You said you were consolidating our finances so we could start planning for the future. What did I actually sign? Doris. Ralph Garrett wasn't her accomplice. He was her other victim. The realization settled over the crowd like ash. This wasn't a love triangle. It was systematic fraud with two marks standing in the same backyard, comparing notes on how they'd been played. Asset transfer authorizations, I said. My voice carried across the silent patio. She had our son sign similar documents 6 months ago. She's been building an exit strategy for at least a year, maybe longer, positioning herself to drain both of our accounts and disappear. Ralph looked at me. Really looked at me. Saw, perhaps, a mirror of his own devastation. Both of us, I confirmed. She married you in October 2024, filed the bigamy certificate in Travis County, started planning the theft shortly after. Jesus Christ. Ralph sank onto the nearest patio chair like his legs had given out. I put $50,000 into that account last month. Life insurance payout from my brother's estate. She said it would be safer in a joint account than sitting in my checking. $50,000. Plus my $520,000. Nearly $600,000 she'd positioned herself to steal from two men who'd trusted her completely. How do you calculate the dollar value of a demolished life? I stepped forward into the center of the patio, my movement drawing every eye. 40 faces turned toward me. Colleagues, neighbors, friends who'd known Doris and me for decades. Character witnesses to a marriage that had been a performance. I invited Ralph here tonight, I said clearly, because my wife is legally married to both of us. Bigamy. Witnessed and filed in Travis County. October 19th, 2024. I've known for 3 weeks. Doris's face crumpled. Lawrence, please. I know about the scheduled withdrawal. I continued. September 3rd, 7 days after this party. The entire joint account. Everything we built over 4 decades, transferred to an account in your name only. Ralph's $50,000 along with it, I'd imagine. My voice didn't shake, 39 years of betrayal condensed into 3 sentences, delivered like a weather report. My attorney has already filed protective orders, I said. The accounts are frozen, the house is protected. Every asset we acquired during our marriage is now under legal hold pending divorce proceedings and potential criminal prosecution. Criminal! Doris's voice came out as a rasp. You can't. Bigamy is a felony in Texas, I said. Fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, forgery if those documents Leland signed were misrepresented. My attorney estimates 3 to 5 years minimum if the DA decides to prosecute. Ralph sat with his head in his hands. Eleanor Morrison had her phone out now, definitely recording. The whole backyard had transformed into a courtroom with me as both prosecutor and plaintiff. You have 7 days, I said directly to Doris. The woman I'd slept beside for 39 years. The mother of my son. The grandmother of my granddaughter. The stranger who'd married another man while I planned her anniversary party. 7 days to explain yourself to my attorney. Full disclosure, every account, every asset, every document you forged or manipulated. Complete cooperation with the fraud investigation. And if I don't? Her voice was barely audible. Then I file criminal charges and let the state of Texas decide how many years you spend in prison. 40 witnesses stood in my backyard like a jury I'd assembled, one invitation at a time. The string lights still glowed golden. Sinatra still crooned from the speakers. The anniversary cake still gleamed white with our names piped in blue frosting. But the celebration had transformed into something else entirely. A public execution of reputation, performed with devastating precision in front of everyone who mattered. Doris stood frozen between her two husbands. 40 guests bearing witness to her exposure. 7 days until my attorney's deadline. 7 days until the withdrawal she'd never execute. 7 days until criminal charges unless she surrendered everything she'd stolen. I'd spent 3 weeks planning this moment, now that it had arrived. I felt nothing but hollow vindication and the ghost of 39 years burning to ash. The silence shattered into 40 overlapping voices, shock crystallizing into judgment, whispers becoming accusations. My carefully orchestrated trap consuming the woman I'd loved for 39 years. Married to both of them. Did you hear him say $520,000? That poor man from Austin had no idea. Guests backed away from Doris like she carried something contagious. Harold Prescott, who'd toasted our model marriage minutes ago, now stared at her like he'd discovered a snake in his garden. Eleanor Morrison clutched Patricia Thornton's arm, both women pale with scandal. Farah moved through the crowd answering whispered questions. I heard fragments, bigamy certificate, Travis County, scheduled withdrawal, each confirmation sending fresh shock through the backyard. Ralph Garrett sat hunched on the patio chair, face buried in his weathered hands. His shoulders shook. No one approached him, not from cruelty, but from paralysis at witnessing devastation too raw to touch. She showed me pictures of this house, he said to no one, voice thick with tears. Said it was her past life. Her first husband died and she couldn't bear to sell it. I believed every word. Every lie she'd told me, she'd mirrored for him. 2 scripts running simultaneously, both performed with identical conviction. Ralph Garrett sat on my patio chair crying my wife's other victim, mourning a marriage that never legally existed. A guest whispered, "My God, what does this do to the granddaughter?" As if summoned. Elowen broke from the crowd and ran across the flagstone patio, wrapping her arms around my waist with fierce grip. I looked down, her face pressed against my shirt, dark hair spilling across the fabric. I knew something was wrong. "Grandpa," she whispered, "I knew you'd fix it." My hand found her head automatically, stroking her hair. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" She pulled back to look up at me. 8 years old, with eyes too old for her age. Grandma was always hiding her phone from me. When it rang, she'd leave the room really fast, and she had 2 purses, a nice one and a secret one, in her car. I told you last month, remember? The secret purse. The burner phone. The compartmentalized life visible to a child's observation while I'd explained it away as business necessities. You were right to tell me, I said quietly. Elowen's small arms around my waist felt like the only real thing in a backyard full of ghosts. Footsteps approached. Heavy. Deliberate. Leland stopped beside me, his hand settling on my shoulder, solid weight carrying decades of complicated history. I'm sorry I signed those papers. Dad? He said, voice strained but steady. I should have questioned her. I looked at him. Really looked at him for the first time in months. Saw guilt etched around his eyes, but also resolve. Solidarity. You're here now, I said. That's what matters. His hand tightened on my shoulder. Elowen pressed closer. 3 generations standing together in the wreckage, holding on to what remained when trust burned away. Across the patio. Doris stood completely isolated. The crowd had unconsciously formed a circle around her, not enclosing. Excluding. 4 people who'd celebrated her marriage, now maintaining careful distance. She looked at me. Her eyes, the same eyes that had gazed at me across candlelit dinners, hospital beds, our son's graduation, our granddaughter's birth now hollow with something I couldn't name. Not quite remorse, not quite defiance, just emptiness. Her gaze shifted to Leland, to Elowen, searching for an opening, a crack in our unified front where she might wedge an explanation. She found nothing. Leland's jaw set. Elowen burrowed deeper against my side. I simply stared back, offering no comfort, no escape. Doris bent slowly and retrieved her purse from the patio table. Navy leather bag that matched her dress, large enough to hold a wallet, keys, makeup, and a burner phone. Ralph's wedding ring. Whatever identity documents she'd built for her second life. She straightened, purse clutched against her chest like armor. "Lawrence," her voice barely carried across the 5 feet separating us. "My attorney," I said, cutting her off. 7 days. She flinched, opened her mouth, closed it. No defense materialized. No explanation that could span the chasm between 2 husbands, stolen money, forged documents, and a granddaughter who'd sensed wrongness months ago. Doris turned toward the house. The crowd parted automatically, not from respect, but revulsion given physical form. She walked through them like Moses through the Red Sea. But this parting was judgment, not miracle. Her heels clicked against flagstone. Each step echoed in unnatural silence. 4th people watched her cross the patio, enter the house through French doors we'd installed 15 years ago. No one called after her. No one offered comfort or asked her to stay. Not even Ralph, who sat with his face still buried in his hands, grief too fresh to transform into confrontation. Elowen's grip tightened around my waist. Leland's hand remained heavy on my shoulder. Farah stood at the crowd's edge, face set in grim satisfaction. The French doors swung shut behind Doris. Then the front door opened. Distant sound filtering through the house, the mechanical beep of her Mercedes, unlocking, engine starting, tires on driveway. The sound fading into August night. She'd taken only her purse, left behind 39 years of accumulated possessions. Photographs, memories, the physical evidence of a life that had been, in some measure, real before it became performance. The door closed with a soft click that echoed across the silent backyard. 40 witnesses stood frozen. Me still holding Elowen, Leland's hand on my shoulder. The anniversary decorations swayed in evening breeze, golden lights illuminating the wreckage of a 40-year lie. 7 days until the attorney meeting. But the marriage had already ended. Martin Ashford slid 3 signed documents across his desk at 8:30 the next morning. Emergency asset separation orders that would have taken weeks to prepare if I hadn't started planning the night I discovered the bigamy certificate. I'd left the house at dawn. Couldn't sleep in that bed anymore. Couldn't walk past the master bathroom where Doris's makeup still cluttered the counter. Couldn't sit in the kitchen where she'd smiled over coffee 3 days ago while secretly counting down to her planned theft. The guests had finally dispersed around midnight. Farah helped clean up champagne flutes and uneaten cake while Leland carried sleeping Elowen to his car. Ralph Garrett left without a word to anyone, his face carved with devastation. The string lights came down at 1 a.m., golden glow replaced by harsh reality. Now Martin Ashford's office felt like a bunker mahogany desk. Floor-to-ceiling law books, the smell of leather and old paper. Safe. Controlled. The opposite of my backyard 12 hours ago. All joint accounts frozen as of 6 a.m. this morning,
Ashford said, his voice carrying the calm authority of someone who'd executed 1,000 emergency orders.
The withdrawal scheduled for September 3rd has been blocked. She can't access a penny without court approval. I picked up the first document. Legal terminology dense as concrete. My name, Doris's name. Dollar amounts I'd earned over 4 decades now protected by judicial order. And the bigamy petition, filed with Travis County at 7 a.m. Ashford tapped the second document. Her marriage to Ralph Garrett will be voided within 60 days. We'll file for divorce on fault grounds, fraud and concealment. Given the bigamy and the hidden assets, the court has strong grounds to award you a disproportionate share and exclude what she funneled toward Garrett. A disproportionate share. 39 years reduced to a percentage on a court order because she'd committed a felony. Signing those documents felt mechanical. Protecting $500,000 couldn't fill the 40-year void Doris left behind. She'll wake up to frozen accounts, I said quietly. She already has. Ashford's thin smile held no warmth. Her attorney called my office at 6:15 this morning. Doris tried to access funds for a hotel room. Card declined. She's currently staying with someone the attorney wouldn't say who. Not Ralph. He wouldn't take her back. Maybe a friend who hadn't attended the party, hadn't witnessed the exposure. Or maybe she'd already activated whatever escape plan she'd built alongside the theft. The September 3rd withdrawal authorization is legally voided. Ashford continued. Because we prepared these documents 3 weeks ago, dated, notarized. Ready to file the moment you gave the word, we executed before she could establish any counterclaims. Her own timeline trapped her. 3 weeks of preparation. Every contingency anticipated. Every legal vulnerability sealed. Doris woke up in someone else's bed this morning with no money, no marriage, and a bigamy charge pending. The trap I'd built had sprung with mechanical precision. So why did I feel like I'd lost? There's one more signature needed. Ashford pushed the third document forward. Restraining order. She can't contact you. Leland or Elowen without written permission from your attorney. Violation carries criminal penalties. I signed without reading it. My hand moved across the page. Lawrence Blanchard, in blue ink. 39 years of marriage dissolved into court dockets and case numbers. Your assets are protected, Ashford said. The business, the house, the retirement accounts, all shielded. She'll likely request settlement negotiation within the week. We'll handle it. I left his office at 9:30 and drove to Blanchard Home Furnishings. The building I'd built from a single storefront in 1994, grown into 3 locations and 60 employees. The legacy Doris had tried to steal along with the cash. Leland's car sat in the executive parking spot, the space I'd given him when he became operations director 5 years ago. The space Doris had always resented, because it meant our son was succeeding in the business she thought should belong entirely to her vision. I found him in his office, surrounded by manila folders and laptop screens showing spreadsheets. He looked up when I knocked, face still carrying the strain from last night. Dad, I didn't expect you today. Needed to be somewhere that still made sense, I said. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Ashford got everything filed. Accounts frozen. Bigamy petition submitted. She can't touch anything. Leland nodded slowly. Good. That's good. We sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. The office hummed around us, phones ringing in customer service, forklift beeping in the warehouse. The familiar rhythm of a business built on reliability. My son had become my ally in a war I never wanted to fight. I've already filed amended corporate documents, Leland said abruptly. This morning, before I came in. Mom can't touch the business. It's protected for Elowen now. Structured as a family trust, with you and me as trustees. I stared at him. You did that this morning? Couldn't sleep. He ran a hand through his hair. Kept thinking about those documents she had me sign 6 months ago, how easily I trusted her, how close we came to losing everything you built. We, I corrected quietly. Everything we built. His jaw worked for a moment. I should have seen it. Should have questioned why she needed estate planning documents when you're only 68 and healthy. She's a professional liar, Leland. She fooled me for 2 years. She fooled Ralph Garrett completely. You're not responsible for her betrayal. I'm responsible for protecting what you're leaving behind. He tapped the folder in front of him. So I made sure she can't claim any stake in this company. Can't touch it in settlement, can't leverage it for negotiation. The business belongs to this family, the real family, and she's not part of it anymore. The furniture business sat between us like a bridge, 3 generations of sweat equity Doris couldn't touch, wouldn't tarnish. You learned from the best, I said, echoing his words from some other conversation. Yeah, Leland said quietly. I did. We left the office together around noon. Leland walked me to my car in the parking lot. Summer heat shimmering off the asphalt. Dad, are you okay? I looked at him. My son, 41 years old, finally standing beside me instead of at a distance. United by crisis, bonded by betrayal. The money's safe, I said. The business is protected. The bigamy's exposed. That's not what I asked. No, it wasn't. I'd spent 39 years loving a woman who'd spent 2 years planning to destroy me. The dollars were protected, the assets secured, the legal fortress impenetrable. But I still went home to an empty house that smelled like her perfume. Elowen sat cross-legged on the backyard grass where the anniversary party had imploded 5 days earlier, weaving dandelions into a chain, like nothing had changed, but everything had. I watched her from the patio. September 1st, weekend afternoon. Leland had dropped her off an hour ago, needing to run errands, or more likely, wanting to confirm the empty house hadn't swallowed me whole. The string lights were gone, the tables, the setup, the cake, all dismantled. But the backyard still carried ghosts. There, Ralph Garrett had stood holding wine. There, Doris's champagne glass had shattered. There, 40 witnesses had watched a marriage detonate. Elowen hummed something tuneless as she worked, small fingers dexterous with delicate stems. 8 years old, dark hair in a messy ponytail, grass-stained sneakers. Unself-conscious focus of childhood, unburdened by betrayal. Or so I'd thought. Is Grandma coming back? Grandpa... The question came without preamble, without looking up from her dandelion chain. Direct honesty only children deliver. I sat down beside her on the grass, knees protesting. 68 years old, searching for age-appropriate truth. I don't know, sweetheart. Grandma made choices that hurt our family. She might not be coming back to this house. Because she married that other man. She'd understood more than we'd realized. Yes, because of that, and some other things. Elowen added another dandelion to her chain. I'm kind of relieved. The words hit like a slap. What? She was always making me keep secrets. Her voice stayed matter-of-fact, innocent. About her phones, she had 2. A regular one and a secret one. When the secret one rang, she'd make me promise not to tell you or Daddy. And sometimes men would call, and she'd talk in a different voice, all giggly. Then she'd say it was our secret. My granddaughter had been carrying Doris's secrets like stones in her pockets, too young to know they were crushing her. That must have felt bad, I said carefully. Really bad. She looked up at me, brown eyes serious. Miss Henderson at school says secrets that make you feel bad are the wrong kind. Good secrets are like surprise parties. Bad secrets are when grown-ups make you lie. You don't have to keep any of Grandma's secrets anymore, I said. And you'll never have to keep bad secrets for anyone. I promise. Elowen nodded and returned to her dandelions. That's why I'm relieved. She went back to humming. He processed with remarkable childhood resilience. I sat watching her weave flowers, understanding that Doris hadn't just betrayed me and Ralph. She'd weaponized an 8-year-old's trust. My phone rang. Austin area code. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Blanchard Lawrence? The voice was familiar, weathered, tentative. It's Ralph Garrett. I got your number from Doris's phone records. My attorney subpoenaed them. Ralph. The other husband, the other victim. I don't mind, I said. Silence. Then, I need to apologize. I had no idea she was still married. She showed me divorce papers, settlement documents, even a death certificate for someone she claimed was you. All fake. A death certificate. She'd killed me on paper to marry him. We were both victims. Ralph, I said quietly. Elowen glanced up at my tone. I gave her a reassuring nod. She told me you were cold, distant. Ralph continued, words tumbling out. Said you'd driven her away with your work obsession. That the marriage had been dead for years. Did she stayed in Houston out of obligation? That she felt invisible in her own house? I feel like an idiot for believing her. For thinking I was rescuing this beautiful, lonely woman. I was comforting my wife's other husband. The absurdity would have been funny if it weren't so devastating. She's a professional liar, I said. I lived with her 39 years and didn't see it until I found the certificate. You're not an idiot. You're human. I'm filing for annulment tomorrow, Ralph said. My attorney says it'll be granted immediately. I just wanted you to know I'm cooperating fully with any investigation. And I wanted to say, I'm sorry. You don't owe me an apology, I said, but I appreciate it. Pause. Then Ralph's voice. Did you love her before all this? Two men connected by the same woman's betrayal, asking the questions that mattered. Yes, I said. For 39 years. I loved her completely. Me too, Ralph said. For 2 years. Thought I'd finally found someone after my first wife passed. Feels pretty stupid now. Not stupid, just human. Ralph and I were two men standing on opposite shores of the same wreckage, waving across the debris field Doris left behind. We talked for another 10 minutes. He told me about the retirement account transfer papers, $50,000 positioned for theft. Told me she'd been planning to disappear with nearly $600,000 in early September. There might have been a third man, Ralph said. My attorney found hotel receipts from Dallas. Different name on the bookings, not Doris Blanchard or Doris Garrett. Someone else entirely. A third identity. A third life. How deep did the deception go? I hope you're doing okay, Ralph said finally. As okay as possible, anyway. You too, I said. We hung up. I sat on the grass next to Elowen, phone still warm in my hand. Ralph's mention of the fake divorce papers hit differently than I expected, not anger, but strange relief. I wasn't alone in being deceived. A 62-year-old HVAC inspector from Austin had believed her lies just as completely as I had, trusted her just as blindly, loved her just as stupidly. The wounds still bled, but knowing someone else understood the depth of her deception, the fake documents, the manufactured narratives, the surgical precision of her lies made it somehow more bearable. Not justified, not forgiven, just witnessed. Elowen held up her finished dandelion chain. Want to wear it? Grandpa's. I let her crown me with flowers. Tomorrow would bring the final confrontation, Doris's settlement proposal through her attorney. Tomorrow I'd face the financial dissolution of 39 years. The legal parsing of what she deserved versus what she'd tried to steal. But today, sitting in grass with my granddaughter while the September sun warmed my shoulders, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not forgiveness. Not closure. Just the quiet understanding that I'd protected what mattered. The business. The family. The granddaughter who crowned me with weeds and trusted me to keep her safe from bad secrets. Doris could demand whatever she wanted tomorrow. She'd already lost everything that counted. 6 weeks after the anniversary party implosion, I learned to drink my morning coffee alone, without the weight of wondering which version of my wife would emerge from the bedroom. The coffee tasted the same. Black, 2 sugars, brewed at 6:30 a.m. But the ritual felt different, lighter, honest. New routines had solidified. 3 days weekly at Blanchard Home Furnishings, working alongside Leland on the Henderson account that became our biggest order in 3 years. Wednesday dinners at his house with Elowen setting the table. Weekend mornings in the garage teaching my granddaughter woodworking dovetail joints and mortise cuts. Precision and patience. The house was quieter now. Emptier. Yes, but cleaner somehow. No burner phones hidden in coat pockets, no hotel receipts in secret purses, no calendar counting down to the theft that never happened. Martin Ashford had called 2 weeks ago with the finalized settlement. Doris's attorney accepted minimal assets in exchange for no criminal prosecution, some furniture, personal effects. A small cash settlement that wouldn't fund the escape she'd planned. Annulment granted on fraud grounds, bigamy charge dropped as part of the deal. She'd chosen self-preservation over fighting. Just as I'd calculated, the public exposure had been precisely calibrated threat devastating enough to strip her negotiating power, witnessed enough to make denial impossible. I'd traded a wife for solvency. The math shouldn't have balanced, but somehow it did. Leland mentioned Doris was living in Dallas now. Different name, different life. Probably constructing whatever identity came after Doris Blanchard and Doris Garrett dissolved into court filings. The same city where Ralph's attorney had found those other hotel receipts. Though I never asked which name she was using this time. I didn't ask for details. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. That evening I sat in the backyard as October's sun painted the sky amber and rose. The same flagstones where Ralph Garrett had stood confused. The same rose garden where champagne glasses shattered. The same oak tree that sheltered 40 witnesses to a marriage's public execution. 6 weeks hadn't erased the ghosts, but they'd faded to background noise. I'd spent 39 years trusting without verifying. The bigamy certificate forced me to choose quiet divorce or public truth. I'd chosen witnesses, 40 of them, assembled under string lights to watch deception collapse. Had I destroyed her publicly for justice, or for revenge dressed in justice's clothing? The question haunted me some nights. But then I'd remember Leland's face when he understood what he'd signed. Elowen's relief when the bad secrets ended. Ralph Garrett's devastation transformed into solidarity. The business protected, the theft prevented. The witnesses weren't cruelty, they were necessity. Leland needed to see truth undeniable. Elowen needed the memory of consequences. Ralph needed to know he wasn't alone. The colleagues needed to understand why Doris Blanchard would never touch the company again. And I needed them to remember. Needed the exposure so complete, so witnessed, that Doris couldn't rewrite the narrative later. When it claimed misunderstanding or victimhood, the grief was real. 39 years don't evaporate because the last 2 were lies. But alongside the grief sat something harder: wisdom earned through verification. Trust. Yes, but verify. Always verify. Footsteps on the flagstone behind me. 2 sets. One heavy, one light. "Thought we'd find you out here," Leland said. Elowen ran ahead and plopped beside me on the patio bench, small shoulder pressing against my side. Leland took the chair across the same chair where Ralph had sat crying 6 weeks ago. "Henderson orders shipped today," Leland said. "Complete, on time, under budget. They've already requested a quote for San Antonio expansion." "Good," I said. "You handled it well." "We handled it well." He met my eyes. "Working together these past weeks, it's what the business needed. What we needed. What we'd never quite managed when Doris stood between us. Manufacturing tensions. Without her presence, the space between father and son had collapsed into partnership. "I'm glad you told the truth, Grandpa," Elowen said suddenly, her voice matter-of-fact against evening crickets. "Secrets make people sick." Out of the mouths of 8-year-olds. The sunset painted the backyard gold. The same light that had illuminated the party's wreckage now blessed its healing. "Miss Henderson says truth is like medicine," Elowen continued, picking at a loose thread on her overalls. "Sometimes it tastes bad going down, but it makes you better after." I looked at my granddaughter. 8 years old with wisdom I'd taken 68 years to learn. Her relief at Doris's absence validated everything: the public exposure, the witnesses, the choice of transparency over quiet settlement. Children knew what adults forgot. Secrets were poison. Truth was air. "Your Miss Henderson is a smart woman," I said. Elowen nodded seriously. "She says you're brave." Daddy told her what happened, and she said standing up to someone you love when they're wrong is the hardest kind of brave. Leland looked slightly embarrassed. "Parent-teacher conference last week. She asked why you were picking Elowen up. I gave her the short version, which was that you chose truth over comfort," Leland said quietly, "and that we're better for it." We sat in silence as the sun touched the horizon. 3 generations bound by blood and business, and the shared understanding that what remained was more valuable than what was lost. Elowen's hand slipped into mine, small fingers warm against my palm. "Grandpa," she whispered, "now you can build something new." She was right. The marriage was gone, dissolved into divorce decrees and legal filing. The woman I'd loved for 39 years had been revealed as fiction. Performance, calculated deception. But the son beside me was real. The granddaughter holding my hand was real. The business we'd built together was real. The lesson earned through pain was real. Verification over blind trust. Truth over comfortable lies. Witnesses over silence. I'd learned it late 68 years old, before the lesson finally branded itself into muscle memory. But I'd learned it in time. In time to protect the accounts. In time to shield the business. In time to forge alliance with my son before resentment calcified beyond repair. In time to show my granddaughter that truth, however painful, was worth choosing. The truth had needed the right person, the right moment, and the right witnesses to be heard. It took me 68 years to learn that lesson, but I'd learned it in time to save what truly mattered. And to you listening to my story, remember this: trust is sacred, but verification protects what you love. I spent 39 years loving a woman without ever questioning the documents she asked me to sign. The nights she worked late. The phone that rang at odd hours. Don't make my mistake. Blind trust isn't loyalty. It's vulnerability dressed up as devotion. I learned that lesson at 68. But you can learn it today, right now, before it costs you everything you've built. This isn't a revenge story about destroying someone who wronged you. It's about protecting what you love. Some call it a revenge story, but I call it justice with witnesses. The 40 guests at that party were documentation, legal protection. Truth witnessed becomes undeniable. I believe God allowed me to find that certificate when I did, 6 weeks before the theft. Enough time to shield my son, granddaughter, and our business. Verify signatures. Check accounts. Ask hard questions. Truth hurts, but lies destroy. If this story resonated with you, please leave a comment below. Tell me what you would have done in my position. Would you have chosen the public exposure or a quiet settlement? Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more stories that teach while they unfold. Your support means everything to me. Thank you for staying until the very end. I hope this story gave you something to think about. Just a reminder, certain details have been fictionalized for storytelling and privacy, but the core lesson remains true.